Good evening, Norcal Karters. I'm Jason, and it is Monday, January 23rd. And tonight, it is open mic night. And I have our special co-host, Andy Saisman. How are you doing, Andy?
Good. How are you, man?
I'm doing all right. So I know you and I like to ramble and we like to talk, and we cover like every topic in and out of karting, but we only have 4 hours of hard drive space left on my subscription. So I have to stay under 4 hours.
Okay, great. All right. I'll do my best to keep it short.
You'll do your best.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. So normally I go into and I do my events and everything else, but right now we're just going to jump into it. So if you have a question for myself or Andy or in karting in general, type away in the chat lines. You can follow us on Facebook, on YouTube. Those are where the 2 live streams go. And again, on Instagram is one of our social pages. So I'll cover more of the details with other stuff. But Andy, it's good having you back.
It's good to be back, buddy. Like you talked about before we went live, these off seasons get shorter and shorter and shorter.
They do.
It's crazy. And I'm actually, my race is a week later than it's traditionally been, but it still felt like it just came so fast.
Yeah. I know for me, it's like December, feet are off, spend time with the family. And then I see all these race teams posting about all the races they're hitting the first week of January. It's like, yeah, the racing is here.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we had, I was in Rock Vegas. Then all of a sudden, then I was down for Cameron Jocelyn's wedding in Southern California. And then it was Thanksgiving. And then I took a trip to Tucson. I took a quick day trip to Tucson to meet with Charlie at the track there, to prepare for my event. And then all of a sudden it was Christmas. My daughter came home from school, and then my son came home, and then she left to go visit some friends. And then we had Christmas, and then we went to my in-laws in Santa Cruz. And then my kid left. All of a sudden the kids are back in school, and we're back. It's January. Right?
So, just like that.
And then I don't know if you saw, but literally the 2 days before the national championship football game, my buddy called me from down there, and he says, "Hey, if I buy you a ticket, will you go?" I'm like, okay. So flew down to LA for the national championship football game. That was a terrible, terrible football game, but it was still pretty fun.
It's a terrible game, but it was free?
It wasn't free, but I mean, I still had to buy a plane ticket and rent a car and some other stuff. So, but the tickets were almost $1,000, and I didn't have to pay for one of those, so that was a good thing.
That is a good thing. And sometimes those are the memories you always remember when it's just spontaneous.
Oh, for sure. And that stadium, I mean, SoFi is unbelievable. I mean, that stadium is incredible. Yeah, absolutely incredible.
Very cool. Well, since we have you talking and you mentioned some races, let's see if we can get your schedule up here real quick. Let's see here. Boom.
Look at that.
All right. Challenge of the Americas kicking off February 3rd through the 5th at Musselman Honda Circuit in Tucson.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, I leave on Saturday. I start making my way down there on Saturday.
Yeah, I guess you would, right? That's the other thing I always forget about with these teams and yourself. And a lot of people look at the schedule and go, "Oh, February 3rd, I have 2.5 weeks." But for a lot of the teams, if they're driving 2-3 days or 4 days, because you draw racers from all over the country, they need to hit the road.
I actually had a guy email me today who said, "I live in Florida and I'm thinking of hopping in the truck and driving out to come race." Like, come on.
More
I mean,
power to them.
I have racers from Edmonton and Calgary, Vancouver, BC, all the way up there. Um, typically, and then out to Colorado and down through Texas, and then this year we have a couple entries. Race Labronte is bringing in Chase Jones to race. He's an Ohio kid, and I think there was an entry from St. Louis. I mean, there's entries from places we haven't had entries in a while, so it's a good thing. It's
Yeah.
definitely.
No, that's great. And then bear with me 1 second. Let me know. I'm going to try a different tool here. Let me know if my screen share pops up with a weird text messages or a hyperlink. So I'm going to try to bring your link up. Am I screen sharing that?
All I see is the race schedule on the you and I on the left side, and like two
Perfect.
inches, and then the race schedule that has been up there the whole time.
Perfect. Okay. Because no one really wants to see my notepad for all the different hyperlinks, I don't think. But I saw a press release that you did earlier today for the late entry. You kept entries open till after the show?
Yeah, we actually did a couple. So yeah, today, normally I try to close my entry, especially the first one, because we open it so early. I mean, we opened it in early December. Like if you haven't figured out how to enter in time by now, you're certainly probably not coming, or you're just going to enter at the track. I mean, that's just your deal.
Yeah.
So we try to close it down for the first event, at least like 2 weeks early, which the entry was supposed to close Saturday, and then Sean Beer just didn't get around to it. So then when we talked about doing this tonight, he's like, "Well, I'll just leave it open till Monday night, till the end of the show." I'm like, "Perfect, then just toggle it off," because
perfect.
Then Shelby has to do all our bookkeeping and process everything, right? I mean, that's like everything. Every business has a lot of behind the scenes stuff that people don't really see or care. I mean, it's not their business to care about the admin stuff we deal with, but my people all have full-time jobs. So, when Shelby gets to it, she gets to it, right? So she has to process all those entries and make all the files she has to make, the tire files and engine file, all the stuff she does. I don't know. That's I'm the boss. It's still way above my pay grade. It doesn't like it.
You just need to make sure you have enough tires and fuel there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Put that order today. There's a semi truck coming from Florida leaving on Wednesday. So
nice. So I have to ask you this, and we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but I know with you don't care anyway. But please educate me on the OK package or OK-N, because I personally have not talked to anybody that has mentioned it. And I've been seeing this stuff on social media, and so I'm really curious. As a promoter, what have you been hearing about the interest in the OKN class?
There's actually a lot of interest. There's my goal. The timing of this. I mean, this was just created by the FAA, right? I mean, FICAK. They started talking about this basically in the early summer. So I mean, they've invented a whole new category, right? And for those who don't know what the category is, I mean, the two classes they race, OK, the single speed classes they race in Europe are OK, and OK stands for original karting because it's direct drive. It's not a tag, right? It's not push button. It's push start, old school. No clutches, no starters, no wiring harnesses, no batteries. All the stuff that annoys us. But makes karting a lot more accessible and I would easier, I suppose, or more convenient. So OK and OK Junior are their two single speed classes, and obviously they have KZ, the shifter class, worldwide. So they realize that OK in itself is a little too technologically advanced, but the rules are very much open, and it has a power valve, and the tuning is just way wide open, like it should be at the top levels. So they knew that it would never take off on a national level. It would be fine internationally for all the world championships and all the stuff they do, the European championship, etc. So the N in OKN stands for national. So they basically detuned it a little bit. I mean, it's for lack of a better comparison, it's like the Rock Shifter versus the KZ, right? I mean, the Rock Shifter is somewhat of a detuned KZ, right? A little bit less port timing, a less adjustability of the carburetor. The OKN is similar. There's no power valve. It's rev limited at 15,000 RPM. But fundamentally, it's the same package. So it still makes 34, 35 horsepower.
Okay.
It's still a direct drive package with a decompression valve in the head. So when you start it, you push on that valve, it takes away a little of the compression. So you don't have a 126-pound kid, trying to push a 250-pound go-kart, right?
Having the cart trip them up.
Yeah, exactly. So, to be brutally honest, the 125 tag stuff on the West Coast has been dying as I'd say slow death, but it's like the past year. I mean, unfortunately, we had basically zero participation in the Rock GP senior and Rock GP junior class. We
And
had
that was
about
going to be my next question, but you answered it.
yeah. I mean, we had about 8 guys that raced in Masters, and in the end, half of those guys were also racing the 100cc. So it was. I wouldn't say it's a no-brainer because I struggled with the decision, but it was, a fairly easy decision to take away 3 low-performing classes, and add this as kind of an upper level, right? I mean, it's something that we need to separate. We don't need not that he races my series, but we don't need the Ryan Norbergs of the planet racing against a brand new 14-year-old kid, right? We need a separation. We need a pro-ish class, if you want to call it that. And that's what this is supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be, a national level deal but it's a more, advanced package. And they're developing. They're going to have an open race at the OK World Championships, where you can come and qualify and race in Italy. But starting in 24, they're actually going to do a true OKN World Championship, where if you qualify local, you can actually go to that. So much like we do with Rock, much like IAME Rotex, they're going to create its own thing, right? So I don't know. I'm excited about it. It's the fundamental issue. I feel like I'm talking too much, but I always talk too much, so that's fine. The fundamental issue this early in the season.
That's why they're 4 hours.
Is available, right? I mean, it's availability. I mean, they just invented the package over the summer. They've been working on it, fine-tuning it. They homologated them in the middle or the end of November. So homologation, is, people don't know, it's where the FIA or CIK, the karting arm of the FIA, comes in and goes to the factories, inspects the engines, make sure that Jason's not making one engine for himself, right? These factories have to be able capabilities to put these engines out, have a production line, yada yada. So there's a certain number of criteria. I think they have to inspect 40 engines. I don't know what all the rules are, but same thing happens with chassis, right? It's just their way of maintaining some type of control that you don't see a ton of one-off stuff.
Yeah, so, then they're locked in for 3 years before making any significant changes in the models.
Correct. Yeah. It's the same thing. So, I mean, they literally homologated at the end of November. Well, you know as well as I do from being around this sport a long time, Italy takes darn near all of December off.
Yeah. And August.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's all Europe, right? But so they basically started production, at the beginning of December, and then went on holiday on the 15th. It didn't come back till, the first week or second week of January. So engine availability, I knew was going to be a struggle. I mean, there are probably right now 25 OK engines in the United States, but I know I've talked to at least 3. I've talked to 4 of the 6 importers. There's 6 manufacturers that make an engine for this category, and 4 of them have importers in the United States. And I've spoken with all 4 of those importers. So there's more in the pipeline. There's, everybody has 25, 30 engines coming, but it's just not ready yet, right?
Yeah.
So to go back to your original question, which you asked about 13 minutes ago, I feel like. I was hoping to get 10 to 12 entries in OKN at the first event, right? And by Sonoma, hit 20, right? That's been my goal.
Yeah.
And so 10 to 12. Right now I have 9 pre-entries. So I'm exactly online. And I fielded a phone call today with somebody who's interested, trying to get an engine, is having difficulty getting an engine. They said they have one. It's coming. I may not be here so they were afraid to enter. So that, once again, that went to the other press release that we released over the weekend that OKN will have zero late fee for this event, simply because we know that there's engine availability issues, and I don't want somebody to not enter and not plan to come because they're waiting on an engine, and then they literally get an engine tomorrow after our entry closes, right?
Yeah.
So if you're racing 100cc, if you're racing Rock Shifter, if you're racing Junior, if you're racing Mini, right? You're coming. You have your stuff. You know you're coming. You're not coming. Our deadline is not going to make or break you. But if you're waiting for an engine of one of the only 20 that are in the country on the continent, so we wait that.
So speaking of classes, are you? I because I do a lot of deep diving in my research. Let's talk about the classes you're offering. Are you doing limited shifter this year?
No.
No. Why?
Why? Well, because people have asked and nobody has ever done what I've asked. I say, you want me to add limited shifter? Yeah, I want limited shifter. Great. Give me 12 guys, get them to enter for the entire series right now.
Yeah.
Well,
and you're only asking for 12.
Pardon me?
You're only asking for 12 racers for the limited shifter.
Yeah, I'm asking for 50. I'm asking for 12.
Yeah.
Right. 12. I'll be straight up, right? We run 8 classes.
Yep.
My break even's about 100 carts. What I need 100 carts, and I don't lose money putting this stuff on, right?
Yeah.
So 100 divided by 8 classes is 12 and a half. So for every class averages 12 and a half racers, I at least don't lose my butt putting a race on. So 12 is the number, right?
And have you heard any interest in that class in SoCal or Arizona? Or is it really more of a Sonoma-centric type thing?
It's a Sonoma-centric class.
Okay.
Class. And look, all power to them. I think it's great. I mean, it has basically decimated the Masters class because people go where people are, right? I mean, it took your Masters class of 15 or whatever it was and turned it into a limited class of 15, right? It's the same guys.
Yeah.
But I understand the reasons for it, right? It's a little bit easier on the body. It's a little bit easier on the wallet. I mean, all those reasons are valid and they ring true. But once again, you got to have people to come race it. So if you find me 12 people, write the check for all 3 races. Don't say I'll be at Sonoma. That doesn't work, right? And it's never happened. So
yeah.
I mean,
so when Andy and I are talking about the limited 125 class, it's the Rock Shifter package. Everything is exactly the same as the Masters class or the Pro Rock Shifter, with the exception of the exhaust restrictor.
Correct.
Let's see. Oh, gear nuts. Here we go. Let's go, Dan. Amateur question. Any open classes for Challenge of the Americas? Is there a turnout for that?
Open classes. The most open class, I would say, by the definition of, if you mean a run what you brung class, no, we don't have anything like that. OKN is somewhat of an open class because there are 6 manufacturers that build an engine for this, so you can run any of those 6. It's not a spec class by any stretch of the imagination. There's no head profile gauge. I mean, there's rules obviously as far as port timing goes. The intake diameter. They all run a common exhaust, so it's like, okay, there are rules, but engine builders are actually going to have a little fun. They're going to be able to port, and they're going to be able to change the profile of the head if they choose. So that's as open as it gets. But there's certainly no, if you're referring to a run what you brung kind of class, just show up. No, there's.
Yeah, and Dan or Gear Nuts, pretty much in our type of karting, the open is pretty much non-existent for competition. Everything is pretty defined by a rule book and spec. I mean, it's
they still.
So it's spec. It doesn't mean you buy it, you pull it out of the box and put it on your cart. You're still working on the engines to optimize them, but you're not going in there with a mill and lathe and just hacking away at stuff.
No, there's still a market for it in the dirt world. Obviously, I mean, there's open classes in the dirt world for sure, and but in the asphalt world, that they just went They went the way of the dodo, man. They are extinct. I mean, I can remember when I raced in the early '80s on dirt. The open class was very popular. I mean, it was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always that debate that always pops up. Let's see, given Andy's comments. Let's see. All right. Bob, I'm not ignoring you. I got your comment here in the comment section. But we're going to stick with Andy on the OKN. Given Andy's comments on the OKN, what are the anticipated ages of participants?
Well, the class is 15 and up, which means you have to turn 15 during this calendar year. If I look at some of the, I don't know all the ages of my participants, but I certainly know that, there's guys on the younger end of that, like Jesus Vasquez Jr. is entered. Blake Nash, who's just turns 19, I think. But I mean, I think Junior is only 15.
Man, when you say those names, I can't even envision them as racing senior.
All right, but
I'm so out of touch. It's like, wait, they're like tiny.
But then you have, like Alex Keys is racing, right?
I saw that. Yeah.
That's the cool thing is the class is exciting enough that it's bringing back a kid like Alex. I say kid because he is to me, but a kid like Alex Keys, who is, I mean, he's not old by any stretch of imagination. He's 25 years old, but we don't see many. I mean, that's the dark ages for karting, right?
Yeah.
Is that 17 to 30 where we were. I mean, I know the reasons. You have
my dad stopped paying for my racing, and I don't make enough money to do it on my own.
I either went to college, got a job, or am a professional sit on the couch video gamer. Or towards the upper ages of that range, I gave 18 to 30. Then it's get married, start a family, get a job, buy a house, right?
Yeah.
So that's why the under 16s are so big, and then the over 30s, because guys at least get to a point in our life where we can afford a hobby, and golf is freaking boring.
And then you and we've been around it long enough where we're getting the phone calls from our junior racers calling, say, "Hey, I want to get my kid in a cart."
Even worse than that is when you see a guy. So when Travis Irving turned into a Masters a couple years ago, and it almost made me throw up because I raced against him as a master, and I remember him as a cadet.
Yeah.
And when he was a cadet, I was almost a master then. So
yeah,
it's pretty ugly. I think he was in a cadet. I think I was probably 27. So I was close to master's age. I wasn't quite, that old, but so yeah, I was rummaging through some stuff in my desk, and I found a photocopy of the receipt from my very first go-kart, and that receipt is from March of 1983, 40 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that going to be your Throwback Thursday pick in March?
It will be my pick whenever that date is, I'll post it.
Who was the kart shop?
It was a kart shop. It was in Texas. It was in San Antonio, Texas, and it was called Skip's Hobby Shop. So it was just a used. Yeah, they did RC cars. They did a little bit. They did mini bikes and everything else, and they did karts. And it was a used Yamaha frame with a Yamaha engine. For people who don't know, Yamaha contracted with Burrell way back in the late 70s, right around 80, and had Burrell make them some frames, and they packaged these karts up and sold them in their motorcycle shops with the KT100. When the KT100 basically just came out in 78, right? So they made these packages and put them in motorcycle shops. And the Yamaha was actually inboard drive. So if anybody, there's not a lot of Yamaha racing around anymore, but the clutch, like all of us now, the clutch is outboard. It's, it's outboard drive. The original Yamahas, it was inboard drive. So the clutch was like a Briggs. The clutch was right next to you on the seat. So,
hey, that's a perfect segue into Prairie City, because they are adding to their schedule in the two-stroke series Formula Y.
Interesting.
Yeah. So talking about Yamaha, and my first karting experience was at Blue Max Kart Club, and it was on a Yamaha chassis with a Yamaha engine, and I thought I was doing about 100 miles an hour. In reality, I know I was lifting in a couple of the corners I don't lift anymore. So I was probably doing 40 miles an hour.
My mother still reminds me to this day. So my first laps, we lived in Texas. My first laps were on a track called Katy. And back then, Yamaha Junior was like 32-second laps or something like that. Actually, it was Rookie Junior. I'll tell you that one in a second. But it was like 32 or 33 seconds. My first lap was 1:16, and I felt like I was going, like you said, 100 miles an hour. And thinking back, I probably must have looked like Will Ferrell and Ricky Bobby after he got hurt. He was screaming, ah, like driving around the track idling.
Yeah.
But back then, so Rookie Junior, there were no cadet carts. There were no Comer 80s or 60cc engines like the Mini Rock. So it was a Yamaha with a full expansion chamber, open expansion chamber, but with a intake restrictor. And the class weight was 235 pounds with a full size car. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's seeing the weights from the past, and I always get on it. It's like, oh, we just as Americans, we just all need to lose weight, right? But I always forget the carts themselves are just heavier. With all the body work.
Carts back then were 120 pounds.
Yeah. And I always forget to factor that in. It's like, oh, why do we keep adding weight? It's like, well, now we have all these, all this body work and other things that just make them heavier, and that's just a part of it.
You mean a tag cart's 190 pounds?
Yeah.
Right. Once you have the battery and the water and everything else and the body work, and it's like, holy cow! And the frames are fundamentally the same thing. I mean, obviously the bends are different. The tubing, okay, it's more technologically advanced. But if you look at the frames itself, they're fundamentally the same.
I mean, the bolts nowadays are lighter when you're using titanium.
Yeah, unobtainium.
But yes, that was a good segue because you said KT100 Yamahas, and Donald's adding the Formula Y as to his schedule to see. He's had enough interest at Prairie City for guys kind of firing up that KT100 platform.
Donald's doing great things there. I mean, I know that place has had several people run it, and it hasn't been as successful, for whatever the reasons were, whether, when, once Emick stopped running it, and then, I can remember obviously the McAllister, and then the Keys family or whatever, but somehow Donald's really, he's got a ton of energy, man. And that guy is putting everything into it. I mean, I've known Donald a long time, him and his father, and they're just such genuinely great people. I got to give him a shout out. When he released his schedule for his new traveling program, he had a date. His Santa Maria date fell on my date for Pat's Acres. Right, it was up a minute ago in July, and I reached out and I just said, and I just asked him. I said, I don't know if you know this. I mean, because you got a lot going on. You have your own track. You're running all your races, your 2-cycle series, your 4-cycle series. Now you're traveling. Your shop. I said, is there anything you could do? And he's like, oh man, I didn't even realize. I said, I knew you didn't do it on purpose. And I said, in all honesty, both of us are going to get hurt because, in the last few years that I've done the Pat's Acres race, we've had some NorCal participation, right? A ton. I mean, Rob from Aluminos has come up to both of those races. Gary Carlton's came up to both of those races. Kristen Cameron raced both of those races. I mean, right? So Cameron was there. Speed Sense, Austin Elliott was there at both of those events both years, right? So we had a fair amount of NorCal participation up at Pat's, and I know that they're going to support that traveling program. And to Donald's credit, he was so good. He moved that date around. He actually, I have a calendar much like yours behind your. Is that a calendar behind your head, or is that a driver? Oh no, that's just a window. I have a calendar as big as that window, on my wall with all the races everywhere.
A calendar? Do I look like I use a calendar?
Yeah, I know. I know you're iPhone guy or whatever. But so I took a picture of the calendar, and I'm like, so he worked it out, and to his credit, I mean, he's such a great guy. I mean, he could have said, no, these are my dates, and I'm stuck here, and there's nothing I can do about it. Just deal with it, like a lot of other people would. He really wants to work with people. He really wants to do what's best for his customers and the sport as a whole. And I can really appreciate that. He's just a solid guy.
Yeah, and you're talking about his schedule, and I downloaded his Sprint Series schedule. I don't know where I put it. I'm trying to mess around with stuff in the background here where it's a new layout and a new flow to where I can bring up graphics better. Because
Right.
for 2023, I just want to have more graphics on the show, so it's just not you and I talking to each other. We have videos and pictures and karting stuff, but I,
Right.
I don't know what I did with it. I I put it somewhere.
It's somewhere.
It's somewhere. Let's see. Gear
Three
nuts.
car series. I got it. It's right here. So it's April 21st through 23rd at Prairie City.
Yep.
It's Button Willow, May 26th through 28th.
Yep.
Medford, June 23rd through 25th.
Yep.
And then the Santa Maria date that was in the middle of July, I think, is moving to the very beginning of August, I think is what I just don't. I'm not where my calendar is. I'm not in my office, as you can tell.
Yeah. Give me one. Give me 1 second because I have it. I know I have it because I worked on it earlier tonight. Um, I don't know where I put it because I had the Prairie City. I had their three-way that they have coming up, and they're doing the 3 layouts 2 days at Prairie City in February.
Right.
So I had that up and I downloaded it somewhere. That's the problem when I'm like trying to rush through this stuff. I'll find it. I'll find it during this podcast. It'll pop up.
It'll pop up somehow, right?
Yeah, yeah. Somebody did a graphic for it and everything. It's like, oh, perfect. Boom. I'm going to steal that graphic. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I'm looking under the wrong file. Yeah. No, so yeah, Prairie City, they got a lot going on up there. Let's see here. Oh, Dan, Rock Cup Florida was so competitive. Yep, that's been a good series for a number of years. You guys did a great job with video audio last season. We did, yeah. We're doing Rock Sonoma again. I'll bring up their schedule here in a moment, but yeah, Rock Sonoma will be live streaming again for 2023. So that's been a fun. That's actually been a fun new thing for me.
I do want to talk to you about that. I would like to try that for my Sonoma event. So I know that
Okay.
I think Sean has reached out to the video guy.
Yep.
Because we talked about trying to do that for all our races. It's just an expense that, our program traditionally is in the 130s, right, as far as entries go. And there's things that you can do when your entries are 200 that you cannot do when they're 130. It's just an expense thing.
Yeah.
And,
and then it's as a race promoter, you're looking at, okay, if I'm doing this outlay, what's my return on investment?
Correct. And let's be honest, right? While the video is awesome, it's great for people at home to watch. It's a value added thing. I'm pretty sure that not one person says, "Thanks, Eric." Eric Altman's asking the question that I'm answering. You got to be quicker on that, man. I'm pre-answering your question. It's just I'm pretty sure not one person is entering a race because they're live streaming. Right? It's a back end value added deal, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, without a significant investment, you can't do it. And with our traditional numbers, it's just not feasible.
Yeah.
With the travel and everything else, right? I mean, what people don't realize is with the video and everything, you have to have people out there 2 days early to run all the stuff. You have to have somebody there a day late to take it all down. You have to have a control board. I mean, as you know, you have to have somebody managing it, right? Quick math. It's a $15,000 to $20,000 deal. That's all right, Eric.
Yeah, no, if people are
race.
looking at like a chaser type production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a per race deal. And it's like, man, we're just not there. And to be honest, right, if you look at the population, this is my rant. It's a rant. It's a polite rant, right?
Wait, hold on. Let me. Okay, go ahead.
Oh. All right, sorry. Cheers. just because of a population. People ask me, well, I don't understand how Florida can get 230 and you get 130 or 140. And I said, just all you gotta do is look at a map. It's super super simple. And people scratch their head. Some people do, some people don't. But I said, look, very very simple. Our customer base by and large is from the Rockies west. The winter tour is the Mississippi east, right? Our country is very simply divided into 3 regions, right? There's 2.5 times the population east of the Mississippi than there is west of the Rockies. In fact, it's 2.25. There's 180 million people east of the Mississippi, and there's 80 million people west of the Rockies. So we're actually outdoing the winter tour if you do it by population, right? Because when we get 130, 2.5 times that is 320 entries. So that's what they should get based on their population, right? I mean, it's a simple mathematical way to look at things, but it's the truth, right? I mean, you can be, like it's like 8 of the 11 most populous states are east of the Mississippi.
Yeah. Right? Well, and then the other thing they have going for them, it's been a number of years since I've been out there for the actual Florida winter tour stuff, but the first couple seasons I went out there, I thought I got off the plane in the wrong country.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, you go to the track and it was name whatever South American country you want to. I thought I was there. I was like, do people speak English here? And I was,
wow,
it was like, I was blown away by how many people came from South America to race in America or US.
You hear a lot of languages. You actually hear Spanish, Portuguese, and French because of Montreal. They had I did an analysis one year, and winter tour was, when Bill Wright was running, there were years that he had 280, 290, and Challenge was at its 130. Yeah. And at our 130, we had more Americans than he did at 290.
Really?
Yeah, that's crazy to me, right? But it's, people forget how close Florida actually is to South America, right? If you look at a map, the way Florida comes all the way down and South America comes up, right?
Yeah.
And it's and this year, I think just this past weekend at St. Pete, Rock Cup, of their 180 entries, 46 of them were Canadian.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. I forgot about all the ones that come down from Canada, the snowbirds.
Yeah, PSL and their whole crew, right? I mean, so there's teams that come down from there, Prime and all those guys, and it's like, holy cow, 46 Canadians. I mean, we have a couple good teams. I mean, we have Race Lab and Vince from Vemi that come down. I mean, in years past, Daryl Redland came down. Joey from Overdrive had a team for a long time. Yep. This time he's actually coming down and racing my series.
Joey is?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we've never had more than, say, 15 Canadians, even in our best year. Obviously, COVID kind of impacted that a lot. I mean, it went to 0 the year after COVID almost. But to have almost 50 Canadians, it's crazy. It's amazing to me. But so, that part of the world, like you said, there's a lot of languages spoken at the winter tour.
It is. I was like, man, it was so cool. And it was like, I felt so out of place. Like, man, this is interesting. Let's see. Eric Altman, any chance of live stream? Rewind 5 minutes and answered that.
He said we talked about it.
Let's see. Tompkins Motorsports. Have you thought about doing PKR backwards?
I think people would hurt their necks if they had to drive like that.
Coming off the bowl?
No.
Oh, driving backwards. Yes.
Come on, Jason. Follow along.
Hey, we already said it. I'm not as bright as you.
No, you're brighter. First, I'll go down to Justin Heath. Thank you, Justin, for answering that. Santa Maria is July 29th and 30th. I didn't know the exact date, but thank you. Tompkins Motorsports. No.
No. Come on, you don't want to do 100 miles an hour towards the fence?
No, it is dangerous. It is. It was advised by the club not to run it that way. And the last time that SCUSA ran there, one of their assistant race directors was hit so hard he broke his hip and several ribs in the hospital. It's just that kink. If you're familiar with that track, I don't know where you are located, Tompkins, but that track when a shifter through that kink, the way it has that little tiny hump there, it hurt some people. I mean, they had more accidents that weekend than they had in a long time.
Big accidents.
Big, right?
Big ones.
And I mean, I don't know the numbers to all of our classes, but right now we have like 37 or 38 100cc seniors pre-entered. Can you imagine 40 go-karts going down that straightaway into that hairpin?
Yeah.
That's probably 15 or 20 feet from a fence.
Yeah, maybe one of our guys from down there can chime in, or one of our national guys. But I mean, what 100cc's got to be doing close to 80 miles an hour at the end of that straightaway if they're going backwards.
You faded, but they're probably in the upper 60s. But yeah,
going backwards, you think?
Oh yeah,
I like 80. I like
rounding
100. 100. My go-kart does 100.
Yeah, your go-kart does 100.
Let's see here. I'm going to rewind a bit. So Bob Eriks from our Track Magic Owners Group was chiming in earlier. 4Z190. Formula 4-stroke shifter. Let's see if we can make a class. Come on, Andy. Let's make a class.
Yeah.
I only bring that up is I'm working with the Track Magic guys, and promoting that thing, and not, in my opinion, we're not targeting the racer that wants to go collect trophies right now. It's for that recreational guy. It's electric start, 4-stroke shifter. Just, it's a Briggs for shifter. I mean,
we built one. Gosh, it would have to be at least. I'm going back into it. It's at least 15 years ago. We built a Kawasaki 4-stroke on a Burrow. Yeah. The guy who did it actually left the Kickstarter on it.
Okay.
So it was hilarious to watch somebody kickstart the go-kart, right?
Yeah.
Ran the electric fuel pump on the back of the seat, so he had to have a battery that he would flick on the fuel pump. They had Pro Circuit make a pipe for it. It was actually a pretty cool package. That thing had a ton of torque, as you can imagine. We took it out there. I drove it at Adams a few times. We let some people drive it, and he eventually sold it to somebody. I don't even know where it went. It was one of those passion projects, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was probably 15 years ago. We built one of those.
Okay.
We had to go get the gears right because they use a different pitch of chain, so we had to go get custom gears broached, for the engine and.
Oh, to convert it over to 428.
428, exactly.
Yeah. Let's see. So we got So Slow on YouTube. Great to see Jason and Andy. Happy 2023 racing, y'all.
Who's so slow that likes to see me? That's weird.
I'm not sure.
Oh, well.
No one ever says that to me either.
Thank you, So Slow. It's nice to hear from you. You're lagging, Jay.
I am lagging. It is good to see the chat people. No, I'm kind of stuck on that Prairie City schedule because
you're still looking for it.
I was working on it before you had signed into the studio tonight, and it's like I had it printed up or up there. It's like, where did it go? What else you want to talk about? We have open mic night. People in the chat room, what do you guys want to talk about? We got Andy on from Challenge of Americas, challengekarting.com. Oh, I already said we were going to do the Rock Sonoma thing, so let me bring their schedule up real quick.
For sure.
And I know you can kill time talking about that stuff.
Kill time. Is that all I am?
Hey, I mean, you have the longest record on Norcal Karters for a podcast.
What was the number?
I think it was like 4 hours and 15 minutes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
You talked for that long?
We did. And it was all recorded. And Ashley, she thought I forgot to hit end broadcast. So she went to go to the studio to end it. And she didn't realize, then she realized we were still live, just
talking,
having a show.
Right. Yeah, it just turned, when talking about open mic, it's just you and I just yip-yapping about a bunch of everything, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Look, you like to talk, I like to talk, and I've been around this sport for almost, it's coming up on 40 years, right? With a couple breaks in the middle, but it's like I just end up telling stories. And it's a nice.
Yeah.
You know, people
Well,
probably
I'm
don't want
not
to hear
gonna
most of
lie.
them, but
I've had
I like telling them.
yeah. I've had we've had a couple of things where after we signed off, the conversations really got going. And I don't know if it's because the guests like, oh, okay, we're off. Boom, now they can relax.
Right.
And some of those conversations, just from a karting standpoint, were just so good. It's like, man, I wish I could go back and hit play on this.
Oh, for sure. No, I absolutely. Stop
Let's see.
looking for the schedule. You're never going to find it.
No, I have it.
Oh, okay. Oh, Sonoma. Yeah, you found Sonoma. So you didn't
I
find
found
Tom.
Sonoma. Oh, the Prairie City one. Yeah. I got stuck on Facebook and in the rabbit hole of me trying to find stuff. Let's see. So Rock Sonoma. There we go. Live streaming. 2023 at Rock Sonoma. Kicking off March 18th and 19th. So on all their stuff, you'll be able to find our links on Norcal Karters, but we're actually live streaming from the Rock Sonoma channels. So you have to go to Facebook and YouTube, the Rock Sonoma channels, and hit like and subscribe. Then you'll be notified. And at the bottom of my little flyer there, I got promo codes for Molecule. So moleculesports.com, buy your product on checkout, put NorCal 15, and you get a 15% discount on Molecule. So
Excellent. That's nice. That's good.
yeah, we're slowly stepping it up here at Norcal Karters.
Look, it's hard, right? That's the worst thing is having to ask for money and ask for support, right? I get it, but you need it. It's part of the deal. So
well, and then trying to be, trying to figure, like you said, about I don't want to get her name wrong. Your registration gal,
Shelby,
yeah, and you're talking about how everyone has full-time jobs.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, I mean, I love the Norcal Karter stuff, but my full-time income is extrakartparts.com.
Right.
And then the Norcal Karters is, the passion project to promote karting. So I'm always begging for money to keep the site alive and everything else, but it doesn't pay my mortgage.
Yeah, for sure. I get it.
2007 CRGs with SwedeTech Honda 125s. That pays my mortgage. I have one for sale.
Right, there you go. Buy it while it's hot. Buy it while it's hot.
There you go. Yeah. Man, I had something else I was going to bring up after I brought up the schedule.
Well, your Rock Sonoma schedule, you took it down already, but the first races they start in March, like usual, and then if you look, they're doing a Friday Saturday event because of Easter Sunday, and that's the weekend before my event there. So that's why they're on that weekend. Is they wanted to, even though it's Easter, they wanted to give guys or teams, if they happen to come, if they wanted to test, whatever. So that's the weekend right before my challenge event, and it'll be the same layout. So that's always a good weekend for Steve and his crew up there for sure.
Yeah.
One thing I actually, oddly enough, want to talk about is how the schedules worked out this year, and mostly it's with Florida and myself, but it was for the first time in history we were able to get myself, obviously Rock Cup is easy, but SCUSA and USPKS to actually get on a email thread. I got everybody on an email thread, and we hashed out our schedule. We did it over the summer, but we got to hammer out dates to have zero conflicts this year, which is the first time that's ever happened. I've been on Pro Kart dates, Pro Tour dates. We announced and they announced, and it is what it is, right? I mean, I get it. It's you want to have an attitude about it and think it's on purpose, but in the end, it's just weekends. It's just weekends and logistics, right? So everybody was flexible enough. Everybody had to move a date or two and push stuff around, and man, it worked out, and I'm happy that finally, after so many years of doing it, this is my 16th iteration of the challenge. Finally, we got everybody in a virtual room and hammered out a schedule, right?
Yeah. And that's always a tough part. And just even in our little microcosm here in Norcal Karters, just trying to get the clubs. You have 5 or 6 clubs within 3 hours of Sacramento. To try to plan a schedule not conflicting with each other, it's just not going to happen. But there's certain things. It's nice when the clubs are all talking or the promoters are talking. It's okay. Let's avoid this, this, and this because it's going to benefit all of us. I mean, let's be real with the bigger races, uh, with you and in Sonoma, Scusa. I mean, your clientels are all pretty much about the same.
We have a lot of similar. We have a lot of crossover, and then when we go to tracks, I mean, like Sonoma or like NOLA, although they pulled out of there, they moved their race, but you know, a Homestead or a UMC, which used to be called Miller, that have big tracks attached to them.
Yep.
Sometimes you can't be there. I mean, years past, I've been bumped off of. I had a date at Sonoma. I mean, this is several years ago, but I had a date at Sonoma, and all of a sudden they came back and said, "Oh, by the way, there's a big event at the big track, and we're going to need all the space. You can't be here."
Yeah.
Like, what? Like that happened. I don't know. This is probably 7, 8, 10 years ago, right? It's not recent, but it was one of those things where you pencil out a date and you announce your dates, and all of a sudden, like in November, you get we signed this freaking $3 million contract for this rate for this event, and you know your 10 grand ain't worth it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, I get it. You know, it's so funny. We all compete with one another, so we all think, oh, that guy did it to me on purpose. In the end, it's just dates, right?
None of real estate.
And when you talk about clubs, I think the very simple thing about clubs is that adjacent clubs can never be on the same date. But if there's a club between you, I think it's okay. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, you're in a different area because Dixon, Davis, and Prairie City are all within the same stone's throw of one another. I mean, you can literally get to the farthest to the farthest in less than 40 minutes or something, right?
For me where I live, 45 minutes to all 3 tracks.
Yeah, right. So I mean that's difficult. But when you had a play like you go back in the day where you had Southern California, where you had Bakersfield and Santa Maria. Oh, hold on. Bakersfield, Santa Maria, and then there was Willow, and then there was Saugus, and then there was Adams and Paris, and then there was San Diego. It's like when I was helping some of the clubs, it was like, okay, as long as we're not on the same date as the adjacent club, if we're down at Paris and they have a race at Bakersfield, okay, we don't worry about it. But we can't at Paris be on the same weekend as Adams. We're 25 minutes apart.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, well, like you said, when there's 3 tracks in a cluster, that's even harder because you can't, right? There's only so many weekends.
Yeah, if you tell yourself, oh, we want to have 1 race a weekend or one race a month, there's 3 tracks within 40 minutes of each other. Okay, well, there's 3 weekends. Boom, gone. Every month there's 3 weekends gone.
And then you had the IKF Regional 11 back then too, right? So then, okay, you had Regional 11. There you go. There's your 4 weekends. You're done.
And that's actually where I'm a little excited about Donald's thing, where the sprint kart series coming back, that he's hitting the outlier tracks. Because in the past, regional guys have come in and they've basically just piggybacked off of all of our clubs that are local. And then the drivers, well, we can't afford to do both, so we'll just do the regional stuff. And then it hurt the clubs. Whereas now Donald's stepping out and doing I'm going to call them the outliers or the perimeter tracks. And hopefully that'll keep the club's participation higher and draw good support for the outliers. Because a lot of those tracks, they always send entries to our local tracks.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. And I mean, Donald is doing a great job, like you said, trying to include these other tracks. And let's be honest, people are like, well, I'm sure people have said, why are we going to Santa Maria for this NorCal deal? And it's like, well,
yeah,
if your series is predominant, has a ton of LO6 participation, and arguably the biggest supporter of LO26 on the West Coast is ROV, why wouldn't you go to their hometown? I mean, that's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
And in the end, Prairie City to Santa Maria is probably 4 hours. I don't know exactly how far it is. I mean, I know where they are. I've just never made that drive because I always live south.
Yeah, you come in from a different direction.
I live in
4 to 5 hours depending on the weekend.
Yeah, right. So okay, it's a drive, but in the end, I mean, you got to go where you get support from, and ROV does such a great job supporting them that's why you would have to go, right?
Yeah, and that was one of the races. As my family got a little bit more older and established, I would just ask Rainey, hey, can I take off the Monday or Tuesday after the race, and I would go down there for the pro kart stuff, and then I would take 2 days off. And my family, we would just make it a little mini vacation afterwards and drive back home. And it's been a lot of fun doing that.
Oh, for sure.
I get to explore California a little bit. Let's see here. So we had the Blue Max schedule up. I wanted to bring them up because that's going to segue into one of my YouTube promotions. And but they're doing a swap meet February 11th. So it was originally scheduled for last weekend, but we've been having Noah-like rain up here. So if you didn't have a boat, you weren't going to the swap meet. So they rescheduled it February 11th. That is the same weekend as Super Bowl. So, but it's a Saturday, February 11th at Blue Max is going to be a swap meet. So look for a lot more updates. And
what did you say the Super Bowl was?
I think it's February 12th.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it is true.
Yeah.
Because it's the national, it's the AFC NFC championships next weekend, and then the off week is my race weekend. So yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So yeah, that should be good for us local guys that like to hawk our old carts and parts and swap meet. Blue Max, which is out in Davis, and the segue, we're going for 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. This is my cool high-end graphics right here. So we're going for 1,000. We're at 637 right before this show.
Put that. It's like a QR code. I should just be able to click it right off the screen.
Yeah. Yes. Not this one.
Oh, okay.
I can do Girl Scout cookie QR codes for you. So the goal for our one of our goals is to hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube for Norcal Karters. And what's that?
What are you at?
637.
Oh, 637. Okay.
Yeah. So each week it grows. Last year I said, if I get 1,000, I'll shave my head. It's like, then I was thinking, well, I don't think most people even care if I shave my head or not.
I'm literally going to enter 337 more times right now.
There you go. So I shaved my head. And then I realized Kart Chaser did that. They did some sort of a promo, and Connor shaved his head. And it's like, well, I don't want to. That's what they already did it. So it's like, and it doesn't really grow karting. I want to grow karting. So I figured, you know what? I'll do an entry fee. So when we hit 1,000 subscribers, I'll do a special show. I'm going to give away an entry fee. And then on top, and that's for any of the clubs, etc. And then for my clubs that have been supporting Norcal Karters for the past couple of years, we have Andy, we have Your Deal, we have Rock Sonoma, we have NCK, we have Prairie City Karting, we have the Track Magic Owners Group if you're a member, or Team Visalia. And then did I say Blue Max? And then new for 2023, Blue Max is subscribed to Norcal Karters. So they'll be promoting their events on norcalkarters.com. So what I'll do for those entities in NCK Road Racing, I will also pay for your tires and your fuel for the entry fee.
All right, I like that.
So we got the entry for I don't care who wins it, and then if you're a karter with one of those groups I just named off, you're going to get your tires and fuel paid for. So 1,000 subscribers, please.
There you go.
So
hot.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's.
Will you still shave your head?
If people want me to shave my head, I'll shave it because I did say I would do it.
All right. If you hit 1,000 subscribers, I'll shave my head too.
You'll shave your head too. Okay, I'm gonna hold you to that.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, it was. I mean, obviously, I was looking for a gimmick to try to get the numbers up there faster, and it's like, well, racers love to get stuff for free, so it's like, all right, I'll do a free entry, and if I can get more sponsors and stuff signing up throughout the year. Maybe we could do product giveaways and do something like this once a month where there's a giveaway of a product, or we give away other race entry stuff throughout the year. So it's
no, giveaways are great. I mean, I'm blessed that I have, a lot of great supporters for the challenge, and it's like, we have our class sponsors.
Yeah.
Which, they sponsor class, they write a check for that. They're obviously their banners or flags are up at the track. They get all the front row pit spots. I mean, it's usually the bigger teams that bring, right?
Yeah.
And we really appreciate that. I mean, it makes the world go around, right? I mean, it helps pay for the trophies and everything else. And but then we have several sponsors. I mean, Acceleration donates almost $2,000 in certificates every year that I hand out. It's a little over 1,500. But so at every race, I hand out, $500 in acceleration bucks at my drivers meeting on Sunday. So we do I don't know if you remember, but we do a raffle at the Sunday drivers meeting. We try to do a drivers meeting. Our main drivers meeting is Friday night. Are you there?
Yep.
Okay. Right. So our main drivers meeting is Friday night when we go over all the important stuff, and then Sunday morning we'll do a quick wrap up in case we need to address anything that happened on Saturday. But in reality, we do the raffle, right? So, give away $500 in acceleration bucks, give away a couple sets of tires. Odenthal has always been a great supporter. This year, they've donated to each race 2 of their brand new camera mounts, their new articulating camera mounts.
Yeah.
Right, great new product. So they donated 6 of those to us. I mean, those are $200 a piece, right? They gave us 6. They actually gave us 7. They gave us 1 that Sean Beer is going to put on a cart on Friday, and we're going to do a fast lap promo. Sponsored by Odenthal. With our GoPro on somebody's cart, and then give away a couple of those. And then, tagbatteries.com, which is Mike Courtney from Courtney Concepts, has donated, a lot of batteries for us basically to give away on the podiums. And then, last but not least, Ryan Rudolph from Rude Image donated a helmet paint job. And so what I decided to do this year is, the people that win the podium at the end of the year, they win all the trips and all the prizes and the entries and everything else. So at the Sonoma event, we're going to take everybody who has raced all 6 finals and who did not make who did not make the championship podium. And then I'm going to draw their name out of a hat for that free paint job.
Okay. Nice.
So
see, and I like stuff like that where it's where everyone can win something, regardless of how you finish or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we want it to be fun. I mean, look, this is sport's a lot of time and it's a lot of money, right? It has to be fun.
Yeah,
it has to be fun. And I know, people don't go to races because we give away a few sets of tires and some mounts and stuff. But if it adds to their experience and they can walk away, look, there's always it's the only time the kids listen. Right, I'm doing the raffle. Though every mini junior kid is in my face. Right, it's the only time they ever listen. But they're excited. They're trying to win stuff. I mean, it's just fun, and it makes me happy to see a look on somebody's face that, could be the guy that literally just finished 27th yesterday or crashed out, and you want a free set of practice tires, and you thought, man, I mean, that literally made that guy's weekend.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Right. I mean, he's like, man, I spent all this money and I got crashed out by some knucklehead in turn 3. I destroyed my steering shaft and my axle. I just spent $500. And then he's like, oh, but I want a set of tires. Greatest weekend ever.
That's right. All right. So we have a question directly for Andy from Gear Nuts. Andy, do you have a favorite kart engine to drive? And what do you do to get a break from karting, or do you get a break?
Man. All right. Which one do I answer first? So,
Aero kart on a Rotax?
I'll answer the second question first, then I'll go back to the first question.
There you go.
First question, the answer will be a lot longer. So, one is I don't really get a break from karting, but karting makes me have a different hobby than a lot of other people. But cheers. I retired, from driving. I drove competitively until 2014. Raced pretty hard, Rotex Nationals, did some SCUSA Supernats, did some Pro Tour stuff. Back in the day, I kept Region 7 clubs. I mean, I raced a lot, for a long time. I stopped racing in 2014 when my son was just about to enter high school, and he was a pretty heavy duty basketball player. So my time was actually spent in gyms, which was some of the most enjoyable time of my life. And then my daughter became a volleyball player. So when the basketball shoes stopped squeaking, the volleyball shoes started squeaking because they're 3 years apart. So it was a lot of gym time, and that was magical. I mean, if anybody who has kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about, whether they're kids that race or kids that do other things. I had a life change. Jason knows this, but I moved to Idaho this past summer. My wife and I, my daughter graduated high school. I wanted to get out of Southern California, so we bought a house up here in Nampa, which is just outside of Boise. Went from a 7-year-old house in the heart of Orange County on a 6 of an acre, a little crackerjack house. Bought a nicer house on over an acre, has a, it's 2,000 square foot shop on the property. I work out of the house now. My wife has a big garden that she's happy. We got a dog. We never had a dog before because I was always gone all the time. And with the kids, we just didn't think it was fair to have a dog in this little house. So we got a dog. And quite honestly, right now, it's what I do for get away from karting is get on my lawnmower and mow my damn lawn. I mean, not right now because there's snow on the ground, but it's just being able to go and just do stuff, simple things, right? And it's now that we're empty nesters, it's trying to navigate that. So, you're navigating that, taking the dog, tonight it was, my wife got home from work. She's a school teacher. It was, 33 degrees out. We literally grabbed the dog, threw a leash on him and went on a half-hour walk. And I was like, and that was just nice to do,
Yeah.
That stuff I never got to do before, really. So, I keep telling myself I'm going to get back in the kart someday. The problem is it's, 250 pounds. It's not conducive to, the sport's not conducive to me. So I'd have to do a lot of work to get back into any kind of reasonable karting shape. And that's a lot of work.
You can run Briggs Super Master.
Man, it would be so slow with this back guy in it. Oh my God, it would be so slow. That'd be a little, 430 pound Briggs. That would, oh my God. So, I may, what's funny is I always like to have a helmet. And even though I haven't driven full time since 14, I got myself a helmet. It's actually at the painter right now. Like, okay, if I have a new helmet, maybe it'll inspire me to go drive again, right? So, and I'm in a cool spot. Pardon me?
Pat's Acres.
Yeah. Well, I'm in a cool spot because Kart Idaho is right here. They just built a brand new facility a couple of years ago.
Okay.
They had Snake River Karters, which is a pretty old school track, like a little kidney bean track. In a tag, I think it's a sub 20-second lap. So they built a bigger track, more, say a little shorter than Sonoma, maybe, 5 seconds shorter than Sonoma. So, it's maybe almost 0.6 of a mile. They have a great LO206 group up here. They have a small 100cc group up here. There's a club up here that, there's less than 1 million people within 100 miles of where I'm standing, right, or sitting.
Yeah.
And they still get 50 people at their club races. They get 40 LO206s and about 10 100cc's, right? The track, you're not going to put shifters on it. You're not going to put 125 tags. You're not going to put the OKN on, right? But Briggs and 100, it's perfect, right? Think about Dixon and Davis and Prairie City. Think about tracks, right? It's a new track, but it's built in an old school kind of way that it winds among itself and it's not tremendously long. It's not these super speedways that people are building like at Utah and NOLA and Newcastle, right? These 1.2 mile, 1,000-foot straightaway behemoths, that are unbelievable in a shifter, but so to get 50 club racers here every month, I think it's a nice community.
Yeah.
When you talk about less than 1 million people within 100 miles of here, right? Compare that to a Southern California that has 20-something million people within 100 miles of Cal speed when it was open, and club races are 150. It's like, man, with that many people, like why does our sport suffer there so much? I'm not blaming the club. It's just the sport in general, right? In California.
Yeah.
It's just interesting, right? So I keep telling myself, maybe I'll jump in. When we couldn't get Briggs engines this summer, I actually bought one of those Ghost Predator engines, which is their racing,
Harbor Freight.
Yeah, it's a Harbor Freight, but it's their racing engine, right? That they call it the Ghost. But it got around. Paul Bonilla came up here, and him and his wife came up and visited Labor Day weekend. So I took him out to the track. He busted out like 60 or 70 laps, in a couple hours because we were like the only people there and took off. So it was fun. It was fun. As far as me having a favorite, man, when I started in '83, it was, the Yamaha kart with the Yamaha, and then then I had the old Burrell that actually had a Comet K55 on it, which is very similar to say today's 100cc stuff like the VLR, right? The 100cc Reed,
Yeah.
but with no starter, obviously. And I raced that as a junior. I mean, you could race a full blown Reed valve like that as a junior at 295 pounds, right? That thing was hellacious. It was fun. I raced for Flathead Briggs on asphalt. I did a couple seasons of dirt racing in Texas in a Yamaha.
Did you say 255 pounds?
295 was the
No,
Reed.
295. Okay.
The junior class weight with the Yamaha, but it was an unrestricted Yamaha with a full pipe. The junior class was they call it Junior 2, was 265, and then if we put a Reed on, you could run a Reed at 295.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not a small person, so the Reed was great, right? Me. So, but yeah, I mean that was fun, and I got back into it. I got out for a while, to finish out high school and college, once again, those years, those 17 to 25, got back into it at 20, 25 years old, literally the week after I got married. I came home with a go-kart. Very, very, very happy. I made my wife that day. But I mean, that was Yamaha Superbox, an old top card, right? And I did that for a few years. And then they did a KTXL, which was like a Yamaha with a full pipe. Because if you remember back then, I don't know if you remember, it was all box mufflers back then, right? In the mid 90s, a little soup can.
3 or 4 hole, yeah.
4 hole. 4 was okay. 3 was horribly slow, right? I mean, 3 may have been slower than LO206. So and have a Yamaha 2 cycle, you'd think, oh my God, it's so fast. It was very slow. Sportsman. But then they had KTXL, and then the Rotex thing came, and then I jumped into that. I mean, I was kind of the Rotex guy on the West Coast, so I had a ton of fun doing that for many years. Rock TT, did road races, sprint. I mean, I've done everything, road race, sprint, and dirt, 2 cycle and 4 cycle.
Speaking of road race, we're on the same page here.
I can
it's
tell
almost
you,
right, like we're reading off the same document.
That's actually the last race I did was an NCK race at Speed Vegas.
That's right. You were talking about that.
But as far as chassis go, I've had 2 favorite chassis I've ever had. One was like a 2002 CRG Heron Daytona.
Was it yellow?
It was yellow, and then I stripped it and repowder coated it silver. I'm not a Raiders fan, but I powder coated it silver because when I brought it to the powder coater, he says, "Oh, I have like some color, and I got to run a silver going today, and I could throw it in." I'm like, perfect. So I ran that. That was the first kart that I had that went to the front hubs, right? So back then, all the wheels were just spindle mount wheels.
Yep.
And we put the front hubs on it, and it made it a little wider, and that thing was like a Cadillac. It was unbelievable. And if you remember the Heron, it was such a unique design because it had the triangles underneath the way that the hoop went, right? I don't know if you remember this, but so the kart, if you look down at the kart, standing in the seat,
yeah,
it was like a U, and then when it made the U, there was like a triangle on each side, just underneath the ears of the seat, right? It's very, very unique design, very interesting. That thing was great. And then after that, my favorite chassis was a Burrell M32. So Burrell used to make, and being a big guy, Masters, right? I wanted a 32 millimeter chassis, even though you don't see many of them anymore. And the M was, if you picture chassis nowadays, they have the parallel waist, right? It bends in at the front of the gas tank, it goes here, and then it bends back out at the gas tank. So, right, you call it the like a long parallel waist. Well, the M was like a CRG Cali. It only had one bend. It would loop in and then bend back out. And in Masters, that go-kart was the go-kart. We won a lot of races with that go-kart. I remember one year, myself, John Crow, and Paul Bonilla at the Rotex Nationals qualified 1, 2, 3 all under my tent, all in the same go-kart, right? Well, different go-karts, but the same model. We didn't just jump
You
at the
didn't you
same.
didn't share, like, hop in, change the weight?
And in fact, I still have one in my shop right now, an M32. Gary Lobaugh a few years ago when he was liquidating, I bought a bear. He had a bear frame up in the rafters, and I bought it, and I actually retrofitted it with the current brakes and current bodywork because it's an '08 chassis, the
Yeah.
one that I had. They stopped making them. They pretty much stopped making them in '08 or '09. That homologation period, that was the end.
Is that the
But
one that did they have that weird front nose cone? Or
the big,
the front bumper where it was, like, huge and then it clamped in it?
yeah, we had those. I mean, I never ran that bodywork because that bodywork was heavy, so I would always run like Unico or something, which was
Yeah.
like 6 pounds lighter. It's crazy. The old Burrell bodywork was so heavy. So, I mean, those were definitely the two favorite go-karts, was that CRG Heron and the M32, like I said, which I still have one of. But as far as engines, I mean, I was a Rotex guy from the day it started in the United States until basically imploded on its first run in 17. I mean, obviously they're trying to bring it back in some shape, but so you could say, yeah, I love the Rotex. I mean, I love the Rotex because I just love the Rotex. That's where all the racing was, and that's what I promoted, and that's what I did. But um,
Oh,
engines,
and you had the Rotax series you were running was great.
we had a couple. We had the original Gator series, and
Yep.
then the Challenge in Americas, which grew out of that, right? So, I mean, we had some great years. I mean, it was crazy pre '08. It was, my timing sometimes is so shitty. Excuse me, garbage. I the we ran Gators from '04 to like 10, but in that '04, '05, '06, '07, I mean, we only ran mini, junior, senior masters in a DD2 class. And the DD2 class had 5 guys in it. But I would get almost 100 entries in 4 real classes and one
Yeah.
real. I mean, we had 30 masters Rotex guys. It was unbelievable. And it's guys that you see, I raced and Paul Bonilla and John Crow and Robbie Mott. And I mean, it was like I'm not throwing myself in that caliber of driver. I'm just saying the Masters, it was like a who's who of Masters. And Jeremy Drew. I mean, it was like, there's like 10 dudes that could win any national race in the country. And we're racing, at Adams.
Yeah.
Like at my local program, right? It was unbelievable.
Actually, so speaking of SoCal tracks, what are you hearing about the K1, the new K1 track?
I heard it's going to be great. I mean, what do you mean? What have I heard about it?
I mean, as far as when they're opening, I know they did a. Mike Smith made an announcement that he's going to go to work for them, and I guess for me, it's kind of it's a maybe, I don't know if it's a two-part question or not. It's just curiosity because Cal Speed is such a draw down there in SoCal for the karting scene, and when Cal Speed's I mean, it's gone. So it's like now there's this huge vacuum, and there's
it'll come back. I mean, obviously, there's stuff I know that I can't talk about that I won't. I'm sure that they wished it was open already, and it's not. Some of these projects take a lot longer than the average person can fathom.
yeah.
I mean, the first time I saw the concept drawings for that place was 2014.
Okay.
Was at the Rotex World Finals in Spain. Richard Zimmerman was involved with K1 back then. He ran K1 basically, and he ran the apparel side and all the sales side stuff. He didn't do the indoor tracks. So they were, they kind of dabbled as the CRG importer for a while after SSC kind of fell apart, right? And they were doing the right. So, and they had all the apparel and all the stuff. So the first concept drawings I saw were like I said, Thanksgiving weekend of 2014. So over 8 years ago. Right. And then Southern California, building stuff there is crazy. I mean, from an expense standpoint, it's ridiculous, but all the other stuff you have to jump through, it's like, oh well, that's the endangered desert barking spider. You're gonna probably have to go in and do this whole this whole report and spend $1 billion to see how we can relocate the 27 left barking spiders on the planet. By the way,
Yeah.
they're poisonous. They're poisonous, but they're a worthwhile species, so we got to save them, right?
Yeah. One of our tracks has fairy shrimp. So
Oh, there you go. Fairy shrimp. Right. So it's just the stuff that you can't fathom. I mean, I'm in this business and I can't fathom the hoops that they had to jump through, right? So
yeah.
I'm sure they wanted to be open a long time ago. And the rain that they've gotten, that you guys have all gotten this past month and a half or whatever, has been ridiculous, right? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I saw a picture of like the hill basically mudslid over the whole track. You know, I was actually there 2 weeks ago. The day before the national championship game, I stopped. I
Oh, okay.
took and they have some work to do for sure, but it's all about getting you get contractors out there, you can crack stuff out. But
Yeah.
if you can't
I
get
mean, I
contractors,
mean, you're a promoter, so I mean, you need tracks to host
right,
events, and
right.
being that you've been in SoCal for so long. No, I brought it up because the conversation came up here in NorCal a couple of days ago, and honestly, I just kind of shrugged my shoulders. Like I'm not really tied in down there, and I haven't called anyone to talk or.
They had to redo a water main. They had to bring water in. There was there wasn't a big enough water main or something because there were two brand new, the backflow pumps that you see, that the big upside down U that you see sometimes on
Yeah.
right. So there's two brand new of those on the property that I saw, right, with some filling in trenches and everything. So I mean that just got done. So I mean that stuff. I mean that's city and county stuff, right? You're not building anything until that goes, because that stuff's in the ground. Like
Yeah.
you just gotta sit and wait. So I feel for the guys. It's gonna be a great thing for Southern California. I hope that they can open as soon as they can. I mean, it's going to be a well-run operation with Mike Smith, at the helm. I mean, it's you may not like the guy, but he knows what he's doing. I hope he's listening.
Actually, I don't know him that well.
Mike's actually going to fill in, and I know this is going to upset you, but Mike's actually filling in for Rob Howden at my Phoenix race as my announcer. So sorry, Jason.
It's okay. I never saw my check, so I'm not leaving.
Perfect. Well, Mike,
plus I butcher half the names anyway.
Because we do live audio. I mean, to go way back to Eric's Altman's question. I mean, we don't do video, but we've done live audio on EKN for several years now. So, and Mike's worked with David Cole and all their systems. So it's like he's a plug and play guy at this point.
Yeah. That's right, because you've done the EKN stuff for a while.
Yeah. Oh yeah, several years. Yeah. Right. So
I mean, you have to. You're a national series.
Yeah, it's part of the deal. Once again, we get to 200 entries, we can live stream the stuff too. But it's just a numbers game. But
yeah, I've had that conversation a couple times with people in the winter about live streaming their events, and they just go, give me rough numbers, like. And based on their logistics, I gave them rough numbers, and their jaw hit the ground. It's like, I go, what do you expect? I mean, honestly, for Sonoma, you mentioned it earlier, you'd like to live stream your race at Sonoma. They have a lot of the infrastructure there, so it makes it easy. But
right.
I don't know how Kart Chaser and Xander do it remotely, and what they need to bring in for equipment to connect to the internet, because it's. They're not wired.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's just right. And think about it from the standpoint that at these races, right, we're on track. I don't have a practice rule, right? So, guys will show up and test maybe the weekend before, and you'll see one straggler on a Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, there's 20 people practicing. Right on a green track, and every people, oh my god, I can't believe the guy got an extra whole day of practice. Really, it's the track is 2 seconds off. Give me a break.
Yeah,
I mean, he learned where the driver learned where the corners were. If you need more than 2 laps to learn where the corners are, you have a problem, right? but Thursday legitimately is the track. The track's like when I come, because that's their practice day. I don't come and run it, right? The Thursday is my day to get all my stuff, all my stuff settled. My people
Get your ice chest in order.
Yeah, right. Just getting everything in order. I only bring in. I run a slim staff on Thursday. I would run a really slim staff because it's usually me and a helper, which is Eric, who's still working for me this year. We come in on the weekend, and then we're there, unloading the truck. I'm running the forklift, unloading tires and fuel, the glamorous parts of my job, right?
Yeah.
Unloading pallets of fuel and tires and everything else, and then Shelby, Nicole, Angel, I get, my race director Taylor, I bring them all in Wednesday night, and then everybody else comes in Thursday night. So that Thursday, this is going to be a long wrap into live streaming, by the way. So that Thursday,
we have 2.5 hours left on the.
Oh God, please no. So that Thursday, there's probably 80% of the people there as a practice day, right? And we give a lot of practice. I mean, you get almost a full hour of practice time on Friday on our official practice day. But the tracks, like I said, there's 80% of our drivers. I mean, that's 100 drivers, that are there on Thursday. I mean, that's kind of their. Well, that means if you're live streaming and if it's wired and everything and all the stuff, you can't have guys walking around the track on that Thursday, which means you got to bring those guys in Tuesday night to be able to set all their stuff up on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So now you're talking about Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday. It's maybe 6 guys. Yes, yes. Angel does hang banners on Thursday every year, buddy. So you just talk about those expenses that add up, right? And it's not one guy, right? It's the technical guy, the producer guy, and the announcer guy, right? So then it's 3 guys at a minimum.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how much everything went up. I mean, my budget, and I overshare, but I don't care. I mean, my budget for one of these events is about $65,000 in raw costs. That's not fuel. That's not tires. That's not the $100,000 check I write for tires. It's not the $20,000 check I write for fuel. It's not, it's about $65,000 to put one of these 3-day races on. And just 4 years ago, it was 45.
Wow.
And it's just because of the cost of fuel and the cost of hotel rooms and the cost. 5 years ago, I could get rooms for $99 that now cost me $189.
Yeah.
Right. Flights that used to be $250 or $300 are now $600, $500. Right. So
yeah, and for the races, you're moving a lot of crew in.
My payroll for a 3-day event's $20,000. Right. So it just adds up.
Yeah.
So
I think it's good for people to have an understanding, because you always. You've been around it, people, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do, why don't they do this? Why don't they do that? And it's like, well, put it on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm going to ask for sympathy. I'm just telling you straight up. I mean, that's the business I'm in, right? And that's the risk we take, and that is what it is, right? We all take risks in our business. That's what we do. So
that's just part of business.
Trying to maintain all that. So goes back to that live stream question is, it's just another $15,000 on top of that. Just without 200 entries, it's not an affordable proposition.
Yeah, and as a promoter, it almost needs to go back to the teams. Like, hey, I need the teams to step up and pay for these broadcasts, because you're going to benefit from the added customers. Granted, you're going to benefit because now there's more entries, hitting your books. But at the end of the day, a lot of the teams, I don't want to dissuade people, but a lot of the teams are kind of at a saturation point where they can't bring on that new guy, the brand new guy into the sport, which is where I think it's important for that strong club effort, where that new guy has a place to go. Because these guys running the big teams, like that brand new guy that has what's a chain? What's a tire? Why do I need a pressure gauge? Why do I need this? They're likely probably not going to run an event that you're putting on the first year or two.
Yeah, I mean, there has to be, the first thing to go was the middle level, right? I mean, like karting used to have three very distinct levels. There was a club level, and there was the regional level, and
Yep.
then there was the national level. But the national level was a one race a year thing. It was the
Yep.
IKF Nationals or the WK. There was no tours, right? There weren't these big national tours, right? Across the country, or the Rock Fests, or the the USPCast or the SCUSA Pro Tours. I mean, now there's these big tours, right? So what those did is those decimated the regional programs, because those customers were regional program customers. I mean, back in the day, late '90s or whatever, before that too, obviously, but IKF Region 7 was like a national every month at a different
Oh, yeah.
track in Southern California. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, you guys
you
pulled a lot of our NorCal talent down there.
yeah, I mean, you'd be right. I mean, you pull in and it's, you're racing, whatever, Superbox, and you're racing freaking Jason Bowles, who did laps in NASCAR, and Joey Hand, and and then the faster classes, it was Bobby Oracle and Alex Barron and Phil Giebler, and I was like, oh my god, like these, but there was the only national level race was a IKF Grand National. Back then there was a Constructors Cup, but there was only a couple of those.
Yeah,
There
and
weren't
you needed 3 regionals to even think about
even
going
though,
to a
right?
national.
But the difference is that those regionals is where people really got better.
Yeah.
Like there was the club racers that really never left their club. But the cool thing is, when the regional race showed up to their club, the club racer raced it.
Yeah.
Something you don't see now. When the national circuit shows up at the local club, the local guys come to watch. But I mean, back in the day, we used to call them the Adams Heroes, right? Because you'd go there and be like, "Who is this? This dude just put it on the pole over all these guys, and he's never left Adams." And it's like, yeah, but he knows this track, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, he got in the racing, he got roughed up a little bit or whatever, right? The Joey Hands of the world ate him alive, but holy cow, that guy was playing fast, right?
Yeah.
But you take that same guy and you drop him at Paris or Willow, and he was lost, right? So, but the regional racing is where you got better, because the sport was different, right? There wasn't months of testing. It was just, you showed up on Friday morning and you freaking practiced, and you raced Saturday, raced Sunday, went home.
Yep.
And the big national stuff has the regional stuff went away, right? I mean, that's the cool thing about Donald's deal, is maybe that'll bring some of that back.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Donald's deal is an extension of KPX. We got to recognize that what those guys did. But it's crazy because it's just went away. But then you go to a club race, you go to LAKC or Tri-C, and there's the national guys are there in the same tents that they just raced in Florida 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
So it's just interesting. And I won't say it's better. I won't say it's worse. I just say it's different, right?
It's different.
And people will say that, oh, well, these karting teams, they push this. All they did was respond to the market. I mean, the market drives everything. It's not like there were 10,000 go-karters sitting around and Mike Rollison pulled up in a semi truck and went, "I need 25 of you guys to come with me," and everybody went, "Okay, I'm going."
Yeah.
Like the market created what the current situation is, and someday the market may change again, right? It ebbs and flows, but it's interesting how it all, the big change was obviously '08, the '08 crash. The '08 crash really hurt the sport. It changed.
Yeah, because a lot of people exited that never came back.
Because back then, I think back on my customer base back then, and like my Masters guys, right? There were the guys that raced Masters they were blue collar guys, right? They were guys that swung hammers and laid pipe and ran bulldozers, right? They were blue collar guys that by and large owned their own businesses, right? So they were cash heavy.
Yeah.
They had the flexibility to travel to a regional race, to take that Friday off, right? And then obviously there was the group of people that, as their house tripled in value in 2.5 years, they thought, hey, look, all this free money, so I'm just going to go spend it racing. And then obviously they didn't survive that either. So we lost all those people, right? Because people that own their own businesses, when it crashes and it kicks you that hard, they don't spend the money at the same rate that they were. They just
No.
don't. So when that happened, the demographic changed and the sport changed, right? And then it turned from a shop with a bunch of regular dudes to the teams, right, with a wholly different program. And like I said, the market it's not like the teams went out and made this, right? The teams responded. I mean, half the teams out there had shops. I mean,
Yeah.
Seth Nash's dad had Nash's Karts. It was in his muffler shop in Upland, right? I mean, that's where Seth grew up, right? And then Seth worked for Buddy Rice and then managed that program and then started his own program, right? So it's like the ebb and flow, it's just interesting.
Yeah. And yeah, it's pivoting, right? Whoever pivots faster.
For sure. I mean, it's going to change. I mean, I had a long talk with Eric Jones today, who is the Miami USA East, importer. He's the MG importer for the East Coast. They own and manage, Mooresville and Homestead. I mean, him and his partner, they're doing great things. And it's like, when's the next pivot coming? Him and I mean, and I've known Eric for many, many years. And, it seems about once every 2 years, one calls the other and all of a sudden it's a conversation like you and I are having. It's like a 3-hour conversation, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we're both just like, okay, what's the next thing? Something's coming. There's going to be something coming. What is it going to be? Right. I mean, electric's not there yet. We know that, but what's going to change in the sport in a whole? I don't know.
My job is just to get more people in it.
We got a lot of questions. Well, like you say, and what I announced at every drivers meeting, if you want this program to build, just bring one more person next month.
Yep.
I could literally spend $3 million on marketing if I had $3 million, and 3 more people would show up to my races. But if every person brought one more person, we'd be at 250 the next day.
Yeah. The next day.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Eric, I think we kind of answered your question. Given the increasing costs, is there a chance for regional racing making a big comeback?
Yeah, I mean, just depends. The problem is that what will happen is whatever becomes bigger. Humans are, Rob Howden calls it numbers make numbers, right? And I just call it the herd mentality, right? No matter wherever the more people go, that's where people are going to go. So say costs get to a point where it's unsustainable to crisscross the country to do these national events. I mean, I'm just stating a fact. I'm not placing judgment. But SCUSA, the program that is based in Southern California, puts 6 big races on a year, and 4 of them are in the Eastern time zone. So it's like you just took everybody go 3,000 miles that way, right?
Yeah.
So at some point, I mean, if you look what's happening at Orlando in March, right? So SCUSA moved the Pro Tour race from NOLA to Orlando. They couldn't get a contract hammered out or for whatever, or NOLA has a big event. Who even knows? Whatever. It's their business, not mine. They moved to Orlando, which is a great facility in Florida, right? But Orlando now is the second weekend of March is USPKS in Orlando. The third weekend of March is Rock Cup in Orlando. The fourth weekend of March is a club race in Orlando, and the first weekend of April is the SCUSA Pro Tour in Orlando. Who can live in Orlando for a month unless you live in Florida?
Yeah.
And by and large, as you know, 60% of those customers are the same person or the same family, same drivers, right? I mean, you have Rock only people, and you have SCUSA only people, and you have USPKS only people, but 2/3 of them race all of them. They're gonna live in Orlando? Give me a Southern California guy and live in Orlando for a month?
Well, I mean, and to answer Eric's question, my perspective on it is this is why it's important to grow the clubs. We need to get the clubs to a point where they're saturated. And then the saturation overflows to a regional, which is strong.
Yeah.
It's and from what I've seen, with an exception of a few, the clubs just need a lot more support across the board. And we need to make the clubs so they're saturated. Then they're overflowing to regional, and then let the regional and national guys take the gloves off and duke it out for the dollar.
Right. But at some point, like the national thing, right? I mean, you look at some of the fields at the nationals, and it's like, are those last 20 guys in that class really national guys? Right? I mean, it's they have the budget. There's no regional. Those guys would be cutting their teeth at the regional, right? They've gone beyond the club. They should be at a regional program. Instead, they're crisscrossing the country now, right?
Yeah,
It's
because
like,
there isn't a regional for them to.
there's no regional for them.
Yeah.
Right? So then all of a sudden they're at the national, which makes some of these nationals, huge, right?
And there's that big disparity between club and national.
Yeah, and I don't know, right? Everybody wants to rank these things, right? People call Challenge America's a regional program, and they're like, oh, well, yours is only a regional program. Okay, I don't care. Like, it doesn't. But where is the rubric that we go off of that defines what this is, right? They're like, well, SCUSA Winter Series is a pro tour. I go, you mean the one that races at the same track in a span of 4 weeks? At the same track, too, right?
Yeah.
I race in 2 different states at 3 different tracks that are the one's 1,000 miles away from the other one, like, or 900 or 800 or whatever it is. But it's like Sonoma to Tucson. Is it the distance? Is the competitors? Is it the number of competitors? Is it what's the rubric, right? So anyway, if you think I'm insulting me by calling my program a regional program, I don't give a shit. I don't care, right? I've had world champions race on my program. I've had F1 drivers win my championship. I've had if you look in the list of the latest up and coming drivers in the Formula One pipeline, Jack Crawford's a Red Bull Junior team. He's a 2-time champion. Enzo Delini's on the Red Bull Junior team. They just signed him. He's a 2-time challenge champion. Stingray Robb just got an IndyCar ride. He's a challenge champion. Competed for a long time. A lot of us watched the video of Ashton Torgerson doing his flips at the Chili Bowl, last week or what. I mean, he's a challenge champion. Dude, I got more people in the Red Bull Junior team than anybody, but I'm a regional program. I don't care. Right? I don't care. Just come race.
Come race.
I love this sport. This is what I do for a living. It helps pay college bills for 2 kids. That's delightful, right? It helps put a roof over our heads. And I don't have the personality to sit in a cubicle, crunching numbers or, cold calling people, to buy Maytag washer and dryers. Well, I just dated myself there, but
now it's Samsung.
Right. So, Samsung, right? So, I mean, it's like, Sure. Regional racing's making a comeback, Eric. It's the challenge.
There you go.
See you next week.
A quick segue, since you brought up Torgerson, did you ever hear what actually happened?
No, they're doing an analysis of what happened. I mean, Danny, the father, said his belts were tightened just like he's tightened his belts in the last 5 years or whatever he's raced. Dirt oval cars. They don't know. So, I mean,
when I first saw the replay, I was like, oh man, his helmet fell off. And I didn't want to rewatch it because I can't, like, there's that karting crashing or karting emotions or whatever it is on Facebook. And it shows, I can't watch kart crash videos. I don't want it in my brain. I don't want it in my subconscious. And I saw it. It's like, oh man, his helmet came off. And it's like, oh, I hope he's okay. And then a couple of days later, somebody posted it in slow-mo where he came out of the car, and it's like, are you kidding me? Like,
oh yeah, it was scary, man. I mean, and it's sorry, I gotta adjust myself here.
Yeah. Well, and I know you know them in the family because they raced your series.
They raced us, and the crazier. Well, it's not a crazier connection, but so my announcer for many years was Chappie, right? Tim Chapman.
Yep.
I got Chappie from a racer who knew him from water skiing. That's where he came from, right?
Okay.
Lives in Canyon Lake and was he was a water skier, but he announced some water skiing competitions, and it was in the old Gators days, way back, like 06, 07. Like, hey, I'm looking for an announcer. Everybody knows. He goes, oh, I got this guy, right? So I gave Chappie his first gig announcing, and then Chappie was Southern California's karting announcer, right? He did Tri-C, he did LAKC, he was doing everything else, and Danny came up to me in one of my races. He goes, I run so the Tortorson's business is he has like the monster trucks, right?
Okay.
So
like the Gravedigger type things.
Yes, but he doesn't do the stadium shows. He does so he's the regional racing of monster trucks, right? So he's not at Anaheim Stadium, but he's at whatever the next level just below that is, right? And I think he owns them all. I think he owns all 10 or 12 trucks, and he hires the drivers, and right. So whether it's at a county fair, whether it's in the Tacoma Dome, whatever, wherever, right? But Chappie's his announcer. Basically, he hired Chappie to be his announcer, right? So here's a guy who I got from a water ski guy that I then passed off to him, right? So it's been great, to be able to network like that. But the cool thing about such a scary bad incident with Torderson is that within 15 minutes of that happening, I talked to Greg Bell, who was at the Chili Bowl and watched it happen. I talked to Ryan Ruth from Ruthless, who they were customers and darn near family with Ryan for so many years, right? I talked to, so it's like our community is so small that we can reach out and have information and have our fears kind of subsided because of that, right? So it's an amazing thing. I mean, I've literally been watching the Indy 500, and I text Mike Marini or Matt Jaskell, who are spotters, and they're on the spotter stand at Indy during a caution, and they'll be texting me back, yeah, we're not having a good day, blah, blah. It's like, it's just how cool our community is, right?
Yeah, it's a cool family.
Right. It really is a cool family. And, like everything else, right? There's family members you don't like. There's family members you can stand. There's family members that you really enjoy. But it's I wish that our family was brimming over with more people. Like we need a bigger family.
Yeah.
Certainly a bigger family.
Well, that's what we're working on, right?
For sure. And so look at Tavish's bottom comment about regional races, right?
Let's see here. The problem with regional races isn't on the promoters. It's all the big teams bringing the big budgets that scares the club racers away from it.
And that's hard because you can't say, and I understand what Tavish is saying for sure. He has valid points, but that was what I was going to say about what happens if to go back to Eric's, given Eric Altman for text above that, increasing costs, is there a chance for regional racing to make a comeback? Understand that if national racing gets to a critical level that it's unsustainable from a financial standpoint, all those teams are going to go somewhere. They're not going to go out of business, right?
Yeah.
They're just going to come somewhere, and they'll revise their business strategy and they'll revise their pricing structure. But the challenge is that, right, the customers demanded a certain experience when they go to that level, right? I mean, we've all been to these races.
Oh yeah.
To say these teams have $500,000 haulers is not an exaggeration, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's haulers in karting that rival NASCAR haulers from 20 years ago. I mean, it's great. And some of them are 20 years ago. Right. They went to North Carolina and bought them. So it's like it's customer driven. The customers drove that, say, no, we want this experience. And then teams go out and spend this money, but then they spend the money and they need to pay for it. I mean,
yeah. So
what happens is then you have a certain price structure and a certain experience that you supply for that. So it's the market drives it, right? So there's you can't just say by the way, big teams, you can't come to the regional race because you have too big of a budget. I mean, you got to pay their bills too, right?
Yeah. Well, I
Um,
mean, you could almost do the flip side. It's like, all right, we'll pick on Tavish, and then first race, free beer in Tavish's pits. So, but you could almost pick any club in any region, right? You can pick any club you want to, find one that has like a low participation, and make it your goal. All right, I'm gonna go that track. I'm gonna promote their races. I'm gonna go to that track. I'm gonna bring a new guy every race. It is doable. I mean, it's especially in NorCal. I mean, we have so many tracks. Just pick a track and say, all right, I'm going to go there. I'm going to bring a new guy to the track and target the new guy.
yeah, for sure. I mean, we say it. It's harder to do, right? I mean, it's
Well,
hard.
it's weird because outside of, I'm going to take Prairie City out of the conversation because they're clearly a club track, but they are on the upper end of club racing, meaning they have a pro shop at the track. They have a number of the NorCal teams supporting that track. It's a well-run facility, so they got everything going for it. But you go to some of these other tracks for the new guy, it's a ghost town. You don't have any shop supporting those racers. So Tavish, there's your money right there. I honestly would do it. I would absolutely do it in a heartbeat. But until my daughter gives me the middle finger and says, "Dad, I don't want you around for sports and stuff anymore," I'm not giving up my weekends. But if I was looking at doing a kart shop, the very first thing I would do, I wouldn't do a brick and mortar. I would grab my trailer and I would just pick one club a month and just hit that club. Boom, boom, boom.
Did I hear that Greg Bell is kind of running a satellite operation in Prairie City too?
I think so. I haven't been out there in a while, but Ron White's been out there. Gary Carlton's been out there. Austin Elliott, that's his track. Like it's in his backyard.
Right.
So it's funny because Donald, Donald very well. I mean, he has a pro shop at the track, and seeing how he talks to people and the other race teams and making them feel welcome. He doesn't put up a wall like, no, you can't be here. You can't sell stuff. He's, oh yeah, bring your racers. Like he made a very good switch as a track promoter to make it very welcoming to the other shops. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, it's
hard. I mean, it's a hard balance, right? I mean, right.
It is because he does have a pro shop, but he's also running a track.
Right. And that's you got to really balance that. You have to have a very unique personality to be able to manage that. You know, right? You have to be you're a competitor. You're also, a customer, and you're a vendor. You're everything.
Right? Exactly. It's a very interesting dynamic out there.
No, for sure.
But I mean, I could see somebody again having a parts trailer, and that you're not going to make a killing the first year because no one is going to know you're at the track because no one's at the track. And then you pick up a Blue Max or you go to NCK road racings. Or you do something, build your own base. And
the hard part is, as you know, like the internet has with everything, right? Is this the Amazon thing? It's just in time and it's the cheapest price I can find, right? So
yeah, or the Mondo cart of
So even okay. Oh, that's a $60 set of brake pads. Oh my God, a $60 brake pads. I saw them on, kartparts.com for $50. I gotta have that, right? It's like, okay, well, those businesses are built on buying in volume and selling in volume, right? So if I buy 20 of those, I pay X. If I buy 300 of them, I get an extra 15 points off of that X, right?
Yeah.
So it's like they're just different businesses. So it's hard when I see these guys get beaten up, and it's really the reason why a lot of brick and mortars have gone away. It's the same thing. I mean, the Amazons of karting have driven them out of business. Once again, the market, and I'm not talking garbage on the Amazons of karting. I'm just saying
you're not talking garbage about your sponsors.
No, but I'm just saying that the market drove that. The market drove it, right?
So, but we talked about pivoting, right?
That's why we have teams and not shops anymore, because they pivoted.
Exactly. I mean, you can't get in it's. I had this conversation with somebody at the track where they were telling me how good of a deal they just got on mail order over in Europe for a chassis landed here in the U.S. It was cheaper than they can get from any of the OTK dealers. And I just looked at him and go, well, it'd be great when you don't have parts for that and you have to get them from overseas, because that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, but in the end, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, loyalty is a weird thing, right? I mean, you could say that, oh, well, that guy's not loyal to me because he sells to my biggest competitor. So why should I buy the parts from him? And at the same time, he's like, well, you're not loyal to me, so why should I care about you? It's just a right. It's business. In the end, it's
no,
business.
but then like you said, well, now there's all the race teams because they pivoted. They're not selling the brake pads, the tires, the chassis like they were. So they pivot to race team. Now you got to rent to be under my tent.
So, but in the end, they are selling all that stuff because they buy all that stuff and it's in the trailer. And then when you need the stuff, you put it on the cart that you literally are renting from them.
That you're renting, yeah.
Or you bought whatever your deal is. But
yeah, it's the pivot. Like, all right, readjust.
So I mean, it just, in the end, I think this is an opinion. I've never done a study because there's no data. I would think that the amount of money being spent in karting has been very flat for several years. It just gets spent by less people every year, right? So
yeah,
say if we used to have 10,000, now we're down to 2,500, but the same volume of money is being spent overall, right?
Yes.
People used to buy one chassis, use it for 2 or 3 years, and then sell it. Now people are using 2 or 3 chassis a year, right? So it's just a different thing.
Yeah.
And I think to some of Tavish's points where he says, it's driven the lower budget guys out, or they're concerned about the higher budget guys. It's in the end, I think we're all competitive, but we get so focused on winning races instead of just enjoying what we enjoy that guy says, well, why should I go compete over there? I got to compete against him with this $1 million budget and I'm not going to be competitive. So why should I bother? And it's like, well, is your life really decided whether you get a go-kart trophy or not? Like, do you, right?
Yeah.
So then our job is to hold on to those people and at least turn them into practice day karters. You know what I mean? Like, okay, if you don't want to race anymore, don't race, but don't leave the sport, please. Do you not enjoy this? Like, I know plenty of guys that golf, and it's like they know they're never going to win a golf tournament, but they still go golfing twice a month.
They don't sell their clubs.
They don't sell their clubs because they hit a bad shot or because they can't compete, right? And take it another level. When people say it's all about the back markers with the unlimited budget, yeah, it's perfect, Tavish.
I think that's his team.
That is Tavish for sure. Except the unlimited budget part. The funny thing is, when people complain, I had somebody complain and say, oh, I can't compete with that guy because his budget is too much. And I say, you understand that there's somebody with a budget less than you saying the same thing about you. They're like, what? I said, you have what you consider a middle level budget. So there's somebody with a no budget saying the same thing about you having too much of a budget that you're saying about the guy above you with too much of a budget. And that guy you're talking about that way, he's talking about somebody else with too much of a budget. Like it's all relative, right? So you can write a rule book as thick as the USA tax code, and there's 2 things that you cannot touch: how much money you spend and how hard you work. Those are you can't possibly write a rule about that, right?
Yeah.
So if you can't do one, you better damn well do the other. And the guys that are hardest to beat are the ones that do both, right? That work their ass off and have a very big budget. So when you beat them, it's that more satisfying.
Well, and I think you and I probably know, similar type people that they busted their ass off. They didn't have blank checks, and they went further and they went longer in motorsports than the guy with the big check that just like, well, giving up, or kid doesn't want to do it. But the guy that had that grit and determination lasted longer and went further.
There's a kid that raced with me for a long time, a kid named Dakota Dickerson. Dakota, I got him as a mini max driver and was with me as an FTK guy until he became, I took him to his very first senior race. So from mini to senior, I think I had him when he was 8. So all the years of mini, all the years of junior. When you spent more than 1 year in junior, we didn't go from mini at 12, mini at 12, junior at 13, senior at 14. We didn't do that, 10 years ago.
You did it?
No, it wasn't like that. But he was very regular family, right? Dad sells medical equipment to hospitals. Mom runs a lab, right? I mean, they're right. California family, 1 kid, and they raced a lot, right? I mean, they weren't any kind of unlimited budget people. They had a freaking 22-foot trailer or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And Dakota now races LMP3, and IMSA, he just qualified second in LMP3 for the 24. He's a driver coach. When Jimmy Johnson, I probably wouldn't take too much credit for this, but Jimmy Johnson decided to race IndyCar. Dakota was his first coach because they threw him in like an F4 car for a week just to get used to the open wheel stuff, right? Dakota was his driver coach for that first week. So it's like, here's a kid that didn't come from any kind of money. I mean, look, they're a middle-class California family. They weren't spending $1 million a year racing. They didn't have $1 million to spend or anything. And there's a kid that sacrificed everything to do what he wanted to do. And do we see him on TV every week? Is he making $50 million like Lewis Hamilton? No, but he's a professional race car driver, earning a living as a professional race car driver and a driver coach at 25 or 26 years old, right? That's sacrifice, put it all on the line, and went to work.
Yep.
So, fortunately, everybody sees, it's the bling mentality. It's I gotta be in Formula One or I can't do anything. And it's like, dude, there's 20 of those jobs on the planet, and half of them people are paying to have that job.
Yeah.
Right. Half of those people get paid. The other half are paying to sit in that seat 20 times.
So now it's 10.
So now it's
in the
10,
world.
right? In the world. So Charles Barkley, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying something like this, but Charles Barkley had made a comment, and I love him because he's so outspoken, not unlike myself. And he was talking about his community, and he says, we have to figure out a way to get out of the mentality that the only way to be successful in life is to be in the NBA or be a rapper. He says, do you realize there's 450 NBA jobs in the world?
Yeah.
He says, it's easier to be a doctor or a lawyer than it is to be an NBA player. But for some reason, my community, Charles Barkley talking about his community, focuses on only becoming an NBA player. He goes, it's way harder to be an NBA player than becoming a doctor. But we don't look at being a doctor as a reputable profession. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I happen to be a Formula One driver. That's it. And it's like, dude, there's 10 of those jobs in the world, man. 10, as we said. Crazy.
What else you got for us, Tavish?
Oh, boy.
Oh, we also got gear nuts. Why don't some of these clubs run moto to generate more track revenue? Actually, a few of the tracks do cross them over.
They do. The problem is that if they do the full the full motorbikes where those guys are laying them down, they actually drag the peg. That's what happened to Grand J. There was a track down. There's still a track down in Southern California out of Victorville called Grand J. And they did so much moto on it that when they dragged the pegs on the ground, it actually put grooves in the track. So you gotta figure out, okay, how do I not do that? Do they have to have a special equipment? It's just another level of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And like you see at Sonoma, right? Sonoma has moto only days, right? But you can't mix them on track by any stretch of the imagination. And what's funny is a lot of these tracks in a moto are better the opposite direction than in the kart. I don't know why. I think it's the way the corners open up versus closing. You know what I mean? Our corners are usually late apex corners, so the corner closes on you, right? And with moto, they're better off as a corner that opens on exit. You know what I mean? So just the way that, right? So now you're talking about two different vehicles running two different directions, like. So now you have a moto Tuesday and a kart Wednesday. Well, everybody works Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Well, then a moto Saturday and a kart Sunday, and I don't know.
Yeah,
it's hard. I mean, yeah, these tracks are doing everything they can for revenue. I mean, Pat's Acres, where I go, I mean, some of their best revenue days were drift days.
Yeah, I remember Chris saying that.
Right. And I think they're struggling. There's something with the county. They have a NIMBY person who's upset about, you know, the noise and then their use permit. And I know they're fighting some stuff through county commissioners and everything. But it's like, man, those are great days. I mean, not only from an entry standpoint, but you know what? Do you know what drift competitions get that go-kart races don't get?
I was going to say models, but that's probably not correct. But they're all over social media.
Oh no, spectators.
Oh, that's true too.
Right?
Yeah.
Because karting to the average person is not sexy enough, right? They can't understand the beauty of what's happening. Like they don't, right? We don't jump in the air. We don't catch on fire. We don't create smoke. We don't burn tires. We don't squeal. We don't make loud, crazy. You know what I mean? It's just the beauty of karting, right? Think about the best lap you've ever done. The tires made no noise. Everything was like you were gliding, right? It wasn't and that. But you go to a drift rate and oh my god, that's the most amazing thing. No, it
So
sounds
you
like
heard it here first on Norcal Karters. Andy's adding a drift kart class to his series. We're drift karting. I will sell you the PVC pipe.
Yeah. So I mean that's the biggest thing about these treks doing drift days is they get spectators.
Yeah, I didn't even think about the spectators because I'm not used to that.
Chappie said that when they used to do drift nights at Adams, and they would get like 700 or 800 spectators at like $15 a head.
At Adams.
Yeah, at Adams. Like where did you put all the people, right? I mean, they must have parked all over the neighborhood. But 800 spectators at $15 a head is $12,000. Like,
yeah,
for a Thursday night.
And then if they have a cafeteria or a snack bar running, then they got the food thing going. Are you reading Tavish's comment?
Yeah, Tavish is on. Tavish must be on the wine tonight. Travel races are a waste.
What are we drinking, Tavish?
Yeah, exactly. Some people like
What do you mean by travel? What define travel? Like 30 miles to a different track or 900 miles up and down California?
It's all the route. Like what defines regional versus national? What's the rubric, right? So
I love that question though, regional versus national.
Even worse.
I mean, and in Tavish is based out of Sonoma. So for those who don't know, that's where he's based from. Oh, he's sober. Shit. I mean, I'm glad you're sober, but you're not gonna pass out on us. But I love that question of the regional national club, and I think Sonoma just fits into that weird category because there's a lot of income around the Sonoma track, so they're able to draw in a certain clientele.
It is Sonoma. I did the research once, and I might be off by one, but it's like 4 of the 10 richest counties in the United States are within 100 miles of Sonoma.
Yeah.
One of them is Marin.
Yep.
San Mateo, right?
Yeah. And then they got those cities that no one's supposed to know about, where it has the biggest income earners in the world.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's one of those things where, yeah, like you said earlier, you can't outdo budget or hard work.
Mm-hmm.
And people typically from the Bay Area, if they're going to have money, they're probably hard workers. They're going to enter the sport at the grassroots level. Their closest track happens to be Sonoma. That's just the demographics of the area. But going back to your regional national thing, for me, I've always looked at it as, okay, who's racing at that track and how do they do at the national races?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to a national race and they're competitive, or are they unknown? And if you have a certain density of racers at a certain track or region, and you've seen it, I mean, it's floated around the USA for years. You know, NorCal was strong, SoCal was strong, Florida was strong. There was a couple of years where the Canadians on the Eastern Canadians kicked our asses in shifters. I don't know why, but it just moves around. And So yeah, now you call Eastern Canada national. They're national talent because their guys came down here and cleaned house.
Yeah. And part of that's the community, right? Iron, what they say, iron sharpens iron. So if you have all of a sudden, you go back to NorCal, right? You go back to
Yeah.
NorCal where the current team owners used to be racers and not team owners, right? When it was Gary and Ron and the Speed brothers and heck, and Ron's brother Joe. And there were so many. You just go through the list: Buckwalter and Memo, and you're like, my God, man, where do these guys come from? Like, what? How in the hell? But then you'd go down to Southern California, and you'd have like the country's best Yamaha racers. You'd have Fleming, and Bowles, and Matt Johnson, and you're like, oh, the guys, like, where are all these guys coming from? And it's one of those things where iron sharpens iron, right? You get a couple guys compete each other, and they raise their game, and a third guy gets fast, and he raises his game, and all of a sudden, you're all the bar raises, right? Because everybody's competing and with each other, and they get better every time.
Yep.
It's crazy. The community would not have been the same without it's not in the water, it's in the competition. So you just get to the point where if there were less of those guys racing against each other and it could be all the same number of people, but it's also a certain personality of person too, right?
Yeah.
The guys that are willing to work their butt off to do it.
And that's where I take the task with Norcal Karters. Like, okay, for the ones that are on that, I don't want to say the bottom because I don't like using levels for this discussion, but that new guy that's just trying to get in, not be overwhelmed by the competition or the high end racers that are out there because they have 10,000 laps ahead of you.
Right.
The job of Norcal Karters is to let you know, hey, there's other tracks out there. There's other options for you without being overwhelmed at these powerhouse tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to take away business or participation from those tracks, but it's to allow you to get in and hit these tracks and get comfortable with the kart and then give those tracks a shot. I mean, we have a lot of tracks. We're spoiled.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. It's crazy that like I said, that the fact that you have 3 within 45 minutes is ridiculous, right? But
yeah.
It was actually the same in Southern California. So Cal Speed closed. Cal Speed to Adams to Paris is about the same distance.
Yeah.
But the only, was Paris had a few races, and then Adams had a few with the Tri-C. They would run their Chill Challenge and their other stuff there. But then Cal Speed had 20 races a year. So I don't know. And people are just once again, it's that herd. It's that herd. People go, okay, well, there's more people, right?
Yeah.
8 makes 10, 10 makes 15, 15 makes 20. It's like, where do these people come from? Well, they just showed up because they saw those people.
That's probably your number one question as a promoter, right? You're trying to get something going, and it's like, okay, the OKN is probably a perfect example. Well, who's racing it? You tell, Jason Berry's racing it. Yeah, so fucking what? Like, no one cares Jason's racing an OKN unless they want to laugh. They want to know who the names are getting behind it, and that goes right to what you're saying.
Right.
Let's see. What's the rich ones don't usually want to race. Okay. They can sponsor me. I'll race. But they want to go outside the area. It's almost the price of going east. Okay, if they don't want to race, then why don't you just put together a program where you hit the road for 3 weeks and you're going to hit 10 different tracks in 3 weeks. You're not racing. Boom, you're hitting open practice days and they don't have to race. They get to hit a bunch of tracks and you make a lot of money. Okay, that's one problem solved. Eric Altman. To me, it's the level and cost and time needed. Let's see. Separates regional national. To race in Florida, I need my son to take nearly a week off from school and pay hotel, food, etc. across for that time. You don't need to race in Florida.
No,
there's a series out here on the West Coast.
Read the next statement. That's what he said.
A week off from school and pay the hotel, food, etc. Oh, the next statement.
Next statement.
Oh, I see what you're doing there, Andy. To go to Coda, he takes 2, maybe 3 days off, and I save about half the cost. Yeah, well, and that's what Andy was saying earlier too with his series a lot of the expenses in travel.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I
So,
get it. I mean,
so it's the same for Andy. It's the same for the racers.
right. And you know, they talk. It's that's the challenge. I understand sort of mentality. I understand the lure of Florida, right? But once again, it if people go, well, you have 130 and Florida has 230. Okay, you're right. I said, but there's literally 30 people on the West Coast that go to Florida that don't come to my program. They're like, yeah, because it's bigger. I said,
Oh, we're
but if
going to do math here, aren't we?
but if your 30 stayed home and raced my deal, we'd be at 170 and they would be at 200. Is that really like you're just adding like or is it
Yeah.
that much different? Right? That's like two guys per class, right? In the end,
Yeah.
it's, you know, a 28 car class and a 30 car class. Like, what's the difference, right? But people see that one number and go, "Oh, I got to go over here." And it's like, well, if you stayed on the West Coast, we would be almost as big. We really would. But
Yeah.
I mean, I get it. But like Eric said, it's the extra. You know, you can't. You can race challenge. I mean, there's plenty of people that come in. You know, that come in on a Friday. But for the most part, a lot of people are there Thursday morning for the practice. Right. We can get anywhere on the West Coast after work on Wednesday. You can get to Tucson, you can get to Phoenix. Maybe the flights aren't convenient; they're not great, but you can get there. And I know Tucson is tough, but there's still flights to get out of Tucson. You may not be the airport that you prefer, right? People are like, oh, I can't get it. I had somebody say, oh, I can't get from Tucson to Orange County. It's just too hard. It's just you picked it too hard to track. I'm like, you get to Tucson to LAX. There's a nonstop at 8:30 Tucson to LAX. Oh, I don't fly to LAX. It's too far. How far is it? It's like an hour from my house. Well, Tucson's 500 miles from your house. So what's an hour? I'm like, yeah, right. There's directs from Tucson to San Francisco. Right. So yes, you may not be able to fly to San Jose or to Sacramento, right? But you can get there. But otherwise, you can get out of Phoenix from anywhere. You fly into Sonoma. If you don't live in Sonoma, you can get out of SFO or Oakland and get anywhere on the West Coast that night. So I get it. I mean, Florida is you need if you want to be there Thursday, which is still probably too late for Florida because they have so many entries there. It's all jammed. So it's like you got to leave on Tuesday to be there Wednesday, and then you can't get out Sunday night. So then you waste all day Monday. So now you're literally off work Tuesday to Monday. You're off for a complete week
Yeah.
to go to those races if you live out here.
That was always the thing we ran into when I worked at Swede Tech. They always said, "Oh, why can't you come out to Florida for the races?" And it's like, it's too much down shop time.
Yeah.
All in a lot, not and there's not the race; it's the travel.
No, it's a travel. It's by far the travel, and
But
it's worth.
it'd be great if more people just stayed. Again, I hate to use the word, Andy, regional, that support the regional stuff. So it's like you just said, you have 30 guys going across the country that could be here.
Yeah. And at Tavish's point, Tavish is talking about, oh, well, Tucson and Phoenix aren't in our region, so why do we go? Dude, I live in Idaho, so what's my region? Right? Greg Welch comes from Colorado to go to these races, so what's his region? I mean, Race Lab comes from Vancouver. Race Lab and Vemi come from Vancouver, so what's their region? It's
yeah.
I mean, Tavish, you have a very Sonoma-centric mind view, so yes, these for your customers, these races may be too far, and I get it. I'm not. It's just that's the customer base you have, right? Or you have one customer that races 3 times a year. I think you said earlier. So, but it's like
a good memory, good recall.
Well, for sure. But when we attract people from a 1,500-mile radius or a 2,000-mile radius, it's like, what do you call my region? My region is the entire West Coast, and I can't do 3 races at Sonoma because I'll have 3 races with 75 people at Sonoma. Well, they already do eight of those a year.
Yeah.
Right? So I have to move around. Right? It's part of the deal. I can't. What people don't understand, or maybe to understand, or it's not their business to understand. They don't care, which is fine. There are other tracks, but when you run a program like Challenge, which is for 50% of the competitors, at least a fly-in program. And I appreciate the feedback, Tavish. I really do. But I'm just talking directly to his comments now, Jason. We're just bypassing you. Um, but when you're talking about a fly-in program for at least 50% of the clients, you have to have a certain thing. Like you can't go to Bunwillow because there's no airport that you can. Yes, there's Bakersfield, but the flights are obscene, and then you got to connect 3 times to get there. And there's one restaurant and a Motel 6 and a Motel 4.5, right? So now you have to drive 40 minutes to Bakersfield. Okay, we can't go there. Well, then you can't go to right. You have to have a certain amount of paddock space. You have, right? I mean, they're my competitor, but there's a reason why SCUSA goes to NOLA and Miller, well, UMC and Newcastle, right? Because they have gigantic paddocks for all these semi-truck hauler. You know what I mean? Like they have hotels that are close, and they have restaurants, and they have an airport that's not 3 hours away, and right. So it's all these things. That's why for years I've challenges for years. I mean, I've been at 6 different tracks. I mean, I did Willow like the very first year, and I did Xplex the very first year. I did the very last race at Xplex in Vegas. But other than that, challenge has been at 4 tracks, and now one has closed. Right, Cal Speed, Sonoma, Tucson, Phoenix. That's it. There's the 4 that have enough hotels, that have an airport within a half an hour, that have restaurants close, have a paddock space big enough for us, and have infrastructure. Because you go to any of these other places, and I'm not picking on Buttonwillow, but you go to Buttonwillow, you run a thing like Challenge. Well, now I got to bring in fencing, and they don't have an announcer booth. So now what do I do for sound? And they don't really have internet. It's just other levels of expense, right? Besides the Motel 6, Motel 4.5, and the barbecue place and the McDonald's, that's all that exists there, right? So it's all these other levels of things. It's not just the strip of asphalt. It's all the other stuff. I don't know. We just keep yapping, but and I feel like Tavish and Eric Altman and was it Dan are the only 3 people watching this, which is
that yes, it is. Actually, my buddy Walter, he texted me. He's like, "Oh man, I'm sorry I missed the show. I had a bunch of questions." Because I texted, it's like, "No, we're still on."
We're talking. This is Andy. We talk for hours, right?
Yeah. Well, no, we had the last one we did was with Blaze, online coaching, and the chat. Like right now, the chat's pretty average. There's a lot of conversation going on in the chat. When I had Dion on from Blaze, nothing was coming through, and it's like, what's going on? And Dion made the comments like, "Hey, you're doing your podcast during a championship game, but etc." It's like, I go, "Yeah, but I'm Mondays 7:30. That's my thing." And I know the NCAA isn't going to schedule around Norcal Karters, so I'm thinking, oh, well, maybe Dion was right. And so we did our show. I hit end broadcast, and a minute later, boom, we got flooded with all the comments that for some reason didn't sync up live.
Oh wow!
So we couldn't even answer them because we had ended. It's like, are you kidding me? And everything was timestamped correctly. I never saw him. But we have Tavish now. He's filling up the bandwidth.
He's on it.
I
get it, Tavish. It's travel. I mean, travel's killing it, right? I mean,
yeah.
Stay
close to home, Travis or Tavish. There's plenty of tracks.
That's what happened. It's then you pivot, right? You think about, okay, I'm blessed. I mean, our numbers have been very consistent. I mean, we've been for many years, our Tucson numbers between 120 and 130, and we're going to be there again. It's our number, right? And it's because Tucson is the furthest from, for some people. I mean, in the end, when half the people fly in, far doesn't matter. It's a plane flight, but
yeah,
right. It's the furthest for Ron and Gary for sure, and Tavish by that man.
Yeah.
Speed Sense. I mean, it's the furthest race. But we go, and we've been fairly consistent for many, many years. I mean, I know what I'm going to get there. You know what I mean? I kind of know the numbers. The only one that ever had any kind of significant real bump was Cal Speed, which is why we were going to open there this year, and then of course they closed. But I always got almost a 20 cart bump at Cal Speed just because it was Cal Speed, because of the local community.
Yeah.
I always get a little bit of a bump for Sonoma, but because it's always the third round, I always lose people that are out of the points, right?
Yeah.
Then I get a bump, which kind of saves it a little bit, right?
You get the local guy wanting to run your program, and
Yeah,
you
you
lose
get the
your.
local one to run, which is awesome. And like having, Tavish usually has a guy or two. Every all those guys build a little bit. Ron usually has a couple more. Gary has a couple more, right? I mean, this year for the first time, Nick Leduc Karting Collective, he sponsored a class. They're coming out. He's taking the road trip, and he has 4 or 5 guys, which he's never come to one of my races, beyond Sonoma.
Yep.
So, those guys are out there. Those customers are out there. You just have to cultivate them and find them, and turn them from local guys to regional guys to whatever you want to call this. So, Alex Keys, he's sponsored a class. I'm not sure he has a real big contingent for this one, but Greg Bell, who's gone to Florida the past 3 or 4 years, right? He's got a group. He's coming out.
Yep.
So, I think a lot of that though is impact, and Greg Bell for sure. I think a lot of that's impacted, just like what Tavish said, but to the travel cost. The Florida thing is just so expensive, and finding a number of guys to go do it. I mean, somebody was telling me the other day that they, when the Pro Tour race moved from NOLA to Orlando, he lost a couple guys. He's already got guys in the pipeline. He's down to 2 guys. He's like, I don't know how I'm going to go for 2 guys. I'm like, it's easy. You don't go. Like, what do you want me to tell you? I mean, you travel all the way across the country and back. That's a $15,000 trip, $20,000 trip, right? So 2 guys are going to give you 10 grand just for your services? Probably not.
Yeah. But I mean, that's just the struggle anywhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, dude, here my next worry, to be honest, has nothing to do with karting at all. My next worry is that the stupid state I just moved out of, which you still live in, and Tavish still lives in, just outlawed all diesel trucks that are pre 2010, right?
Yeah.
What do you think all those trucks that run all that stuff off the port every day are? They're not driving 2022 Kenworth double stack. They're driving service tractors, little local tractor trailer, right? They're driving 15, 20-year-old tractors that drive that stuff around. All that stuff is going to go, which means all those companies are going to have to buy new trucks to appease California, and shipping costs are going to all go up because of it. Right. And I don't mean shipping and karting. I mean shipping for
everything.
Every single thing that comes into those gigantic ports every day.
Yep. So here's a plug. Buy Hillian stock, HYLIION. Keep in mind, I run an unprofitable podcast and an online cart shop. So don't take investing advice from me. But Hyliion, check it out. Electrification of semis.
Yeah, exactly right.
You're reading Tavish's comments?
Yeah, actually. My lead is what it is.
I was like, oh, that's all he spends?
Yeah. You spend what you spend.
There's plenty of other racing options.
And I can tell you that Paul Bonilla runs up front in every race he's ever been, and Paul Bonilla spends a fifth of that, maybe a third of that, but certainly doesn't spend that number. But Paul brings his own cart to the track. Paul is his own mechanic. Paul works out of his own trailer. Paul shares a room with somebody. You know what I mean? It's just, there's ways to cut, but that's what it is. Right. And I don't doubt your figures, Tavish. I mean, there's plenty of people that probably spend that. But it is what it is. And I'm bonking. It's after 11 here.
Is it?
Yeah. I'm an hour later than you.
Oh, that's right.
So
we're going to have to send Tavish a bill for all this free advertising here.
It's been a delight.
It's mostly travel costs. That's what Andy said 2.5 hours ago.
Yeah, that's all right. It's the truth. He speaks the truth.
He does speak the truth. So on that note, I'll let you wrap it up.
I'll see everybody but Tavish in Tucson.
Everybody but Tavish. Are you going to be there, Tavish? You going to travel?
He said he can't do it, and I get it. There's no hard feelings. It is what it is.
Tucson, February 3rd through the 5th.
Yeah, buddy. Like I said, I think I told you, Eric flies in on Wednesday to help me load and everything and do the drive, and we get there over the weekend, and Monday morning, the forklift shows up and the semi truck full of tires and semi truck with some fuel, and we get at it. So I mean, it's amazing how fast it goes, but we're at it, and then it'll be a blink of an eye, and it'll be over. So
So
cheers.
besides OKN, do you have anything new on the docket for 2023?
I mean, obviously, we dropped the GP classes. You know, we added the junior rock shifter. I took a chance. I broke my rule, right? I didn't say find me 12 guys that can write out checks for all three, because I had people asking about the rock shifter junior. So Vortex actually spent some R&D money and built a restrictor, much like the limited restrictor. And even though Ron had one, because I know Ron builds all of them.
Yeah.
Vortex being Vortex, if they're gonna build, it's gonna be built by them in house, right? They're gonna do their own thing. That's their manufacturer. So, and we're super light on entries on that. I mean, who knows what the future holds? Maybe people will want to do it. I think there's value in it. There's people that really want to do it, but once again, it's a very different animal, right? These kids came out, they're racing 100cc junior, and now we're telling them now you got to buy a cart with the front brakes and the shifter. I mean, it's another $12,000 investment, and it's this and that. People asked. I don't know what the turnout's going to be, but it is what it is.
And that's been a tough one for years because.
Thank you, Justin Heath. That's the best comment I've heard all night. And you didn't waste our time, Tavish, but you're not going to be there, so you're not going to bring me booze. Thank you, Justin. That's my favorite.
Right there. I can't. I don't think I can make it bigger for you.
No, that's perfect. Hopefully, something locally. They have something made in Fallon. You could bring me. That'd be awesome. Put it in the cabinet.
There you go. Yeah, the junior shifter stuff. It's. I mean, you and I remember Junior 80, and I mean, some badass racers and racing came out of that class.
Junior 80 was incredible.
Yeah.
Junior 80. I mean, that's. Holy cow. I mean, Speed and Gary and Chris Carmody and Colin Fleming and Charlie Kimball and Preston Peeble. I mean, I can, names that people don't even know now, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Well, and when Scusa tried to kick off the S5, the junior shifter stuff, it's like a lot of us had that vision of Junior 80. It's like, man, there was a lot of excitement for a couple of years there, and it was growing, and it just kind of petered out. And I don't know. It doesn't seem like the shops as all of them push the class. Like they'd rather push their touch and go stuff.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Like I said, I'm giving it a shot, and we've added it to our class list.
Yep.
And we'll see. I mean, maybe it'll take off, maybe it won't. Maybe we'll get a few entries, and in the least, it gives somebody a different option. I mean, I would like to see some of the faster junior kids, race. I mean, obviously I'm selfish, right? I want double entries, but
yeah.
But I mean, some of the faster kids, I'd like to see them race the shifter in the 100cc, right?
Yeah.
And it's
extremely fun watching those young kids wheel a shifter around and how hard they race each other and the racecraft that comes out of that class. It just makes me smile thinking about it.
Oh, for sure. So we'll see what happens. I mean, those are the big changes. I mean, OKN's the big one. For sure. Junior shifter, we'll see. I mean, Shelby does all the entries, but I know that I think we have in the 100cc senior, I think we have 37 pre-entries. I mean, that's
okay. Nice.
We have over 40.
Now, are you still doing the mixed engines where you can run KA or VLR?
Yes.
Yep. All right.
Yep. So I don't know what that would have held the other way, but it is what it is. So.
Yeah,
honestly, the reason I did it is because this was supposed to be the year that I went all VLR, but in the end, with CalSpeed closing, there were a lot of teams concerned that it goes back to all of our discussion points tonight, right?
Yeah.
CalSpeed closes. When's K1 going to open? Where are we going to race? We can't afford Florida, and here's the midpoint from wrapping all that in. Now there were guys that raced literally, Tri-C, LAKC, and Pro Kart, and they never left Southern California. But if you think about what it took to race all three of those areas, and now you can't race at those clubs, or or Tri-C's still going, but there's hasn't been an LAKC schedule yet outside of K1. There hasn't been a pro kart schedule, until May because they were scheduled to open in March at K1. So now you got guys that are like, they have the budget, so some of the teams are like, okay, well, if we leave the KA in there, I can bring them, right? Obviously, 37. I mean, there's the junior VLR class, I think, is like 28. I mean, there's 37 in that one. I mean, there's 65 entries in those two classes, right?
Oh, you need to have Sean hammer that.
It's hard. It's a double-edged sword, right? Because if you announce one too loud, then everybody wants to know every single class, and then you get there's only in that. Oh, what happened? There's big classes, there's small classes. Right? What I've found lately over the past several years, the other thing that changed about the customers, people are asking for entry numbers as a reason not to come, not for reason to come. Right?
Yeah.
In the past,
I can understand that mentality.
In the past, it was like, oh, that dude's coming. Oh, that dude's coming. Oh, I'm going. Now it's, oh, that dude's coming. Yeah, I'm not going. Or, oh, there's not enough for me to waste my time.
Yeah.
Right? So, and there's always a couple classes that are small. It's just the nature of the business. This is what it is, right? You can't have all 50 car classes. I mean, you can go look at the numbers of a couple of both race series that raced in Florida this month, and you could see a couple very small classes, right? They just are. So, so I try not to release those entry numbers, and for one, EKN kind of has the exclusive on doing the full preview. So if I do a full preview, I kind of take away that thunder.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because they do the rollout,
and I pay for them to do that serving.
Yeah.
Right? They're a partner, and it's their job. So why would I get on and go, okay, these are the numbers, when they on the Wednesday or Thursday roll all that stuff out, right? That's what they do. So,
gear nuts. I've seen some 4-stroke shifters on YouTube. Could that become a class?
You never know. Someday.
Never know.
We'll see.
Gear nuts. We're gonna do 4-stroke shifters, and it's gonna be a drifting class.
Yeah.
And Andy only needs 12 entries to get it going.
Yeah, there you go. And electric, right? To be honest, I think we'll see electric carts before we see a full field of 4-stroke shifters. I really do. I think.
Yeah, I can understand that.
I think the technology and the push is towards electric. It's like it skipped over the 4-stroke thing, right? I mean,
but we're going to ban generators in California, so you can't charge the batteries.
No doubt. So crazy, right? So crazy. Yeah, how are you going to charge them? I don't know.
Solar.
It's a whole forethought thing, but whatever.
Cool.
So, all right, man.
I'll let you go. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure. Thanks for everybody who chimed in. Appreciate it. And we'll see everybody we see down in Tucson. And pay attention to EKN Live. They're the ones that broadcast all weekend. They start usually in our last practice session. I know. Sorry, buddy. Our last practice session on Friday, which is our hot pit session, when everybody gets 18 minutes and we do a full hot pit, and where guys can make changes and all the other stuff. We're still, I think, the only series in the country that does that anymore. Used to be a big thing, but it is for us. It's actually my very favorite session of the weekend, because that's when everybody throws down for the first time, right? Friday morning practice. Okay, they're doing what they're doing. They're trying different gear combinations. They're put out the practice engine on or whatever. That last session, more than half the people put new tires on, and they throw down. And watching some of these guys, completely change the front end or doing gear changes on pit lane and go back out and throw down a lap is fun. And having Rob and Dave there to Rob announce it, and Dave, it's great. So, and
there's a chance you're going to do live Challenge of Americas at Sonoma.
I'd like to. So Sean's going to talk, and we'll go from there.
Cool.
So thank you. Good night, everybody.
No, thank you.
All right.
It's always a good time chatting with you.
You bet.
All right. Have a good night, Andy.
Bye. Thanks.
All right. We just lost Andy, and that's going to wrap up our show. So thanks for tuning in tonight. Thanks for all the good questions and the comments. And next week, I will be back on Monday, and I will do a rundown of all the schedules that I have. So if you have schedules for your club or your track, get them to Norcal Karters. and we will start pushing those every other week. So we're going to have NorCal Mondays on one Monday. We're going to have the event podcast on the alternating Mondays. So again, if you're part of a club and you have a schedule, get it over to me. And we will get those all on the calendar at norcalkarters.com. And just remember, if we all get one person into the sport, we will double by next year.